Good morning from the Airport Marriott in Philadelphia. Our live coverage continues with Women's Basketball Media Day as players and coaches from around the American get ready to take the 2018-19 season by storm. Great to have you with us for the next couple of hours alongside college basketball analyst and former Georgetown superstar Monica McNutt. I'm Haley Outen. Monica, as a former player, what are the nerves like right now, knowing that in just a couple of weeks, all of that hard work in the offseason is about to be put to the test?
So I don't know if I would use nerves to describe it just yet, Haley, but you're definitely getting excited. You get to put on your clean, fresh jersey. You're starting to envision yourself on the court. We're past midnight madness for a lot of these schools, which is filled with tons of excitement in terms of being ready to play. Now, you get an opportunity to set your intentions, and these are the people that are going to be covering you all season long. So you set them now, and we'll see if you follow through come March.
Looking forward to a great season ahead. The hustle bustle as people start filing into this room, getting ready for Media Day. And if you're just now joining us here on Facebook, we encourage you to interact with us throughout the broadcast. Leave comments. We're going to be showing those throughout the broadcast. Who are you rooting for? What players are you interested in learning more about? You can even leave us some questions, and we'll try to get to those throughout the show. But we have a lot on tap for you today as all 12 teams in the American start gearing up for the season. Commissioner Mike Aresco will address the media in just a few minutes. And throughout the afternoon, Andy Katz is going to be hosting a series of roundtable discussions. You can find those on Twitter at American_Comp. But before we get to any of that, let's get to the preseason coaches poll just released moments ago. UConn, the overwhelming favorite to win its 6th straight conference crown, while USF is picked to finish just behind them in second. Two teams we're used to seeing at the top. However, a new team that has creeped its way up the poll the past few years is Houston, picked to finish third, followed by UCF, Cincinnati, Temple, SMU, and ECU. Rounding out the poll in that 9th spot is Tulane, then Wichita State, Memphis, and Tulsa. Monica, initial reaction to how the coaches voted in this year's poll?
I like it. For the most part, I would say that I agree. If I think of teams that maybe turn the corner and really enter that upper echelon in terms of the American and women's basketball, I definitely think UCF is a team that you're going to watch. I think Cincinnati, under the new leadership of Coach Michelle Hurd-Clark, or Clark Hurd, excuse me, is another team. You look at what she was able to do over the course of her career at Western Kentucky, I think she brings sort of that same thing to the Bearcats, and they're going to be a team that you have to watch out for. I also think that when you look at the middle of the pack, Temple, they've got their star Aaliyah Butts back. That makes a difference, and so I'm curious to see what the Owls will be able to do in conference play. But I'm not here to argue that UConn doesn't belong at the top of the conference poll.
UConn, the clear favorite, and a big reason why is they have the preseason player of the year on their side and senior Katie Lou Samuelson. Monica, why does she set the standard for not only this conference, but also as one of the top players in the entire country?
Well, you know, yesterday we did one-on-ones, and I will be honest, I, for one, underestimated Katie Lou's size. She's got tremendous size, and then you look at what she's able to do on the basketball court in terms of leading the nation with her three-point shooting percentage. Because of her size, because of the versatility of her game, she's a nightmare matchup, essentially. I mean, if she has a smaller guard defending her, she's perfectly comfortable going into the paint and taking advantage of her height. If she has a smaller guard on her out on the perimeter, she will just pull up and shoot over. And God forbid she have a heavier player that can't keep up with her in terms of the foot speed. She's getting to the rim pretty easily. But I love the way her game has sort of grown. And I think she talked about the intangibles being one of the ways that she's most proud of the growth of her game. The stats, they speak for themselves. There's nothing as far as the game of basketball that she cannot do. But I think when you begin to turn it on mentally, that takes your game to a whole nother level. And that's what we're used to seeing from Geno Auriemma coached players.
Samuelson, not the only player on her team garnering some preseason love. She's joined on the first team by teammates Crystal Dangerfield and Nafisa Collier. And then from USF, it's unanimous selection Kitty Alaksa, and then Houston guard Jasmine Harris. Now, Harris is a name that has started to emerge. Why are coaches feeling like she is among the best in the conference?
When you look at what she did last year for Coach Ron Huey's squad, I mean, she was able to score the basketball at a very, very high clip. She's averaging 19 points a game and 5 rebounds. I think when you're able to do that from her position, and maybe you don't have the attention going into a season, when we all sit back and look at our statistics over the course of the conference matchup, you look at who torched you. And Jasmine Harris maybe didn't torch everybody, but she certainly was someone who had to be accounted for on the basketball court.
Nafisa Collier, of course, on the first team, a unanimous selection as well. And she's seen a lot in her time at UConn. Of course, her freshman season, winning that national championship, but then falling short the past 2 years. What role does Napheesa play for this UConn team?
I think that as a senior who's had that experience, she's going to be, in my mind, sort of a 1-2 punch with Katie Lou Samuelson. She's not a player who's going to kill you from behind the arc, although I'm sure I played basketball. If you leave someone who plays basketball open, they're going to take a shot. But I think she gets to be a presence. She's not quite as big as Azurá Stevens was, but when I think of Napheesa, I think a lot about Gabby Williams. I think about her cutting in the paint, diving hard. I mean, she's got great size as well. Their fitness and weight training program at UConn, they do a great job. When you look at the girth of her body, her arms, her shoulders, her legs, she's got a great base. I mean, she's going to clean up on the boards. She's going to be a force to reckon with inside the paint. And so I think when you think of UConn, they often have so many weapons. But you mentioned it, this senior class is a little bit unique. Sure, she played in the national championship her freshman year, but they've been on the other side of some historic upsets the past 2 years. And so I think Napheesa, Katie Lou, and Crystal, as seniors, there's something special about this group. When you look at UConn's record, and this is where it's an embarrassment of riches. The only time they've had a 3-year gap in recent history in terms of NCAA titles was 2010 to 2013. And so this group, if they're going to keep the trend, this has to be their year to a degree. Now, do I think they can do it? For sure. But we also thought they could do it the past 2 years. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Monica, you mentioned Crystal Dangerfield, and maybe not the name that people are always talking about, but she is certainly someone that should not be overlooked. A junior, she comes in with a lot of experience. Why is she key to running this UConn offense?
Well, you said it. I think your point guard is imperative, and I think Coach Auriemma would echo that. I remember talking to him here last year, and even when we did the American Championships up in Uncasville, he talked about how Crystal, as his point guard, was imperative for what his team needed to be able to do. I mean, we always hear this, but I don't know that people that didn't play the game truly get it when coaches say that your point guard is an extension of you. It's your person that's on the floor communicating with your players. It's the person that's making adjustments as things are happening in real time on the basketball court. There's a savvy and there's a leadership. I think for Crystal, she takes this job very personal and very serious. She's got great weapons around her. I mean, if she wants to rack up on assists, she absolutely can do that. But she also knows she has to pick her spots and make herself a threat, because the point guard is one of those positions that truly keeps a defense honest.
We round out the first team by talking about USF's Kitty Al-Aqsa. We can't forget about her, and I can't wait to get to the part of the show where we roll your interview from last night. I know that both of you had a great conversation, but she brings some international flair to this game. Of course, one of the top players in this conference. How dangerous is she for the Bulls?
So we know about Kitty's game, and she has weapons galore. I mean, she's going to shoot the three. Please don't leave her open unless you want to die by her three ball. She can get to the rim. I think her game is just so incredibly smooth, and maybe we credit to the European style of basketball in that she doesn't necessarily need a lot of space to make things happen, but still has the ability to make things happen. I think this season's going to be interesting for Kitty because Maria Jespersen has graduated for the South Florida Bulls, and so I'm curious to see what Coach Jose Fernandez cooks up in terms of the spacing for this group so that she has the room to work.
A lot of talent on that preseason first team, but let's take a look at the second team. Harris's teammate from Houston, it's guard Angela Harris. Of course, no relation, but certainly teaming up to be a pretty good duo down in Houston. USF's Laura Ferreira, SMU's Alicia Falling. Temple guard Aaliyah Butts returns after suffering a season-ending injury before last season, and then her teammate as well, Mia Davis. Monica, who is someone we could see really have a breakout year out of this group?
I'm super excited about two. I'm still two on this one. The two young ladies that are coming back from injury, Alicia Falling of SMU and Aaliyah Butts of Temple. I think sometimes in life we don't really appreciate what we had until it's gone, and that might be the case for these two young ladies. They are pumped to be back from their injuries. I think that they can actually help their teams finish maybe higher than what we saw in the preseason poll. I think Alicia Falling, a double-double machine. Like, you have to account for her. You can't tell me that won't be impactful. And in a way, I think Aaliyah Butts going down last year forced Mia Davis, who was also a second-team selection, to step up her game. So I'm excited to see them work together.
We're going to keep talking women's hoops all morning long here at American Basketball Media Day in Philadelphia. Thanks again for joining us here on Facebook. Make sure to leave us your comments. We're going to try to get to those throughout the day, but we're now going to send it over to today's opening marks over at the podium.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Been a long time living off the wall. Years gone by that I can't recall.
Welcome everyone to our second portion of our Basketball Media Day here for 2018-19. This is the women's edition. We'll get to Commissioner Mike Resco just in a moment, and then throughout the course of the afternoon, I'm going to be conducting some roundtables up here with the head coaches. Players are going to be circulating with the various media outlets, and as you can see in that video, this is year 6 of the American. The league continues to grow in all sports, especially in women's basketball. Everyone knew coming in, obviously, about UConn's record, but as we've seen with USF and UCF, I mean, the talent continues to get better and better in this league in women's basketball and will continue to grow. And I know Commissioner Oresko is going to speak about that here momentarily. Commissioner of the American Conference, Mike Oresko.
Thanks, Andy, and appreciate all you've done for us. And again, having you here today is terrific. You're obviously a voice of college basketball, and we appreciate all you do for the sport. A warm welcome to everyone, and thanks for being here. This is our 6th annual American Athletic Conference Women's Basketball Media Day. And as you know, the conference is firing on all cylinders. We're doing extremely well. You may notice, we're wearing our green ribbon, as well as we have a pink logo made to celebrate Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and that's obviously extremely important. We also have a Powerful Minds initiative that our student advisory committee has come up with to basically address, mental health issues and take any stigma out of seeking help for mental health concerns. And it's a very, very important initiative, and we applaud them because it's something that we sometimes overlook, and we shouldn't. But again, I congratulate them, and we'll be talking about that, and it'll be a major initiative, not only this month but throughout the entire year, as breast cancer awareness is as well. And we're part of the Cure Bowl, as you know, also, which has that as its main charity. We've enjoyed, as a conference, tremendous success nationally. We're one of the most respected women's basketball conferences in the country, and over the past 5 years, all 12 of our programs have made at least one postseason appearance, and our conference has earned 12 bids to the NCAA championship. We obviously enjoy the luxury of having talented and respected head and assistant coaches who serve their student athletes and their institutions extremely well. We've had, as I said, a tremendous run of success, and our coaches, our players, they bring respect to the conference. Geno Auriemma and UConn's 11 consecutive Final Four appearances constitute a remarkable achievement which we do not take for granted. We salute Geno and his staff and his student athletes for what they have done, not only for the conference but for women's basketball nationally. I want to recognize longtime UConn Husky assistant coach Chris Daly, who in June was inducted into the Women's College Basketball Hall of Fame, a richly deserved honor. She has been alongside Geno at UConn for all of his more than 1,000 victories, and we all appreciate what she means to the university and to the program in stores. While Geno and Jose Fernandez at USF certainly have helped carry the banner for our conference, we have outstanding coaches throughout. And again, as I said, they have their programs on a steady and upward path, but they do more than just coach. They teach, they mentor, and we have a great group of student athletes who bring pride to the conference. They're active in their communities. Last season, for example, we've had, success that frankly, we knew we'd have, but under Katie Abrahamson Henderson and Ron Huey at Houston, they led their teams to their best season since joining the American. This is the kind of progress we envision. And again, both teams earned berths in the WNIT. The Knights finished with 22 victories. Houston reached the 20-win mark, appeared in the postseason for the first time since 2011. So these are the kinds of achievements all of our schools are going to be involved in. We continue to build momentum. We have a record of success. And we get the most significant television exposure, which is really important in all of women's basketball. And that enables us to build our brand. I would like to take a moment to recognize Tulane head coach Lisa Stockton. She's entering her 25th year with the Green Wave. And and 7 wins shy of her 500th career win at the school. And again, pleased to recognize her. I'm also pleased to welcome new Cincinnati head coach Michelle Clark-Hurd to the American. Most recently, she was the head coach at Western Kentucky, where she had a 154-57 record and led her team to the postseason all 6 seasons that she was there. And she returns to coach the Bearcats program after serving as an assistant coach there from 2002 to 2005. We, of course, have always had superior players in our league. And for example, last year, USF senior guard Kydia Laxa set 2 NCAA records. She led all Division I, both men's and women's, in free throw percentage. And I am a particular admirer of that because I know the discipline and hard work it takes to become a great free throw shooter. And we also know how important it is to the game. And she also set the record for consecutive three-pointers in a game with 11 against Southern on December 15th, 2017. And that's just one example of the outstanding players and student athletes we have in women's basketball. As I said, we have great players throughout the programs, but they honor us with their commitment to their academic pursuits and their community involvement just as much as what they do on the court. Our American Championship, our basketball championship, has been a spectacular success and continues to draw record crowds. We're pleased to be returning to Mohegan Sun in Uncasville, Connecticut for the 6th consecutive year. That has been a terrific venue that everyone enjoys. Our women's basketball tournament is the best attended in the entire country, and we're extremely pleased about the enthusiasm the fans show, and I know all the student athletes and the coaches and fans really enjoy going there because there's a lot to do around the venue, and it's a terrific arena, and it's been great for us. I want to thank Barbara Jacobs, our Associate Commissioner for Women's Basketball. As many in this room are aware, Barbara is a tireless advocate for women's basketball in our league and nationally. She's involved in women's issues, and she's just been a tremendous resource for us, and I thank her for her commitment. And a special thanks to the rest of my American staff for their efforts in organizing another first-rate event for you here at the Marriott. We want to thank the people at the Marriott for hosting us again. And I also want to thank, again, our entire staff for making this a successful day. I am humbled, being commissioner of this conference. 5 or 6 years ago, our future was very uncertain. We had a lot of travails, but we've come a long way. We've fought hard. We're fighters. I think we're in a great place. We're in a great place with all our sports, and I'm very proud of what we've done in women's basketball. I appreciate all of you who are here today. If there's anything we can do for anyone this afternoon, please let us know. I wish our players and coaches obviously all the best this season, and I thank and appreciate all that you do, the way you conduct yourselves, both on and off the court. I hope you enjoy the journey this year, and as I say every year, may we win our share. Thank you.
We just heard from the Commissioner of the American, Mike Aresco, in his opening remarks to get this day started. And Monica, a couple of things that stuck out, but the first one being Tulane's Lisa Stockton in her 25th year at the helm at Tulane, but also UConn Associate Head Coach Chris Daly being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. And those are just 2 coaches that make up the piece to what this conference is. How impressive are the coaches that make up this league?
Man, those 2 awards sort of speak for themselves. I mean, Chris Daly being side by side with Coach Auriemma through turning that program around, essentially, if you look back into the history books at what UConn was when he first arrived. But Coach Stockton also demonstrating such a commitment to Tulane and to her players. I think that's something that to a degree is underrated and underappreciated at this point. I mean, we've seen a lot of coaches across sports platforms move for greener pastures, bigger opportunities, bigger challenges, and it's certainly okay to outgrow where you are. But I think when you look at those 2 in particular, truly grasp the commitment to the young women that they're creating, because eventually the ball does go flat. You don't wake up and look forward to a game. There are bigger things in life that you have to look forward to and conquer. But that time you spend on a college campus is just incredible for shaping your character. And I still, and I'm sure you do to a degree as well, Haley, still see life through the prism of attacking it as an athlete.
We heard the commissioner reference it, but this conference is heading into its 6th year. When you look around this room, you know, this banner over there, it says 5-year anniversary, and you see some amazing pictures, some amazing accomplishments that have taken place. And the commissioner alluded to it. 6 years ago, people weren't sure what was going to happen in this conference. How far has this league come?
It's incredible. And I think on the women's side, obviously, the pace setter is UConn. But I think what we've seen in terms of USF, what we've seen in terms of UCF, who's been to postseason play, we're seeing a Houston team begin to emerge, Cincinnati. I think sometimes it may take a while for things to evolve, but that's okay. It's uncertainty that sort of is the way that we find what our true strengths are. And I think that this league, in terms of women's basketball, has an incredible future. I mean, you appreciate Commissioner Oresko in terms of his vision and his leadership, because so much of college athletics is obviously driven by football, but there's good football in the American as well. And so I think when your other sports have an opportunity to benefit and they're all celebrated, I think that you set up a wonderful situation, not only for your student athletes, but for your coaches to want to stay in that conference.
We're going to get into this a little bit later in the show, but as you see, Monica and I were both wearing these Powerful Minds pins, and this is an initiative set out by the Conference Student Athlete Advisory Committees, promoting mental health awareness and ending that stigma associated with it. So that's something that's being talked about a lot here today, not just in women's basketball, but across all sports in this conference. And we're going to tell you about that a little bit later in this show. But let's move on. We want to talk about where the women's game is going and where it's come from. And you know, one of the things that stands out is actually the conference championship that this conference has at Mohegan Sun, heading into its 6th year, and it's the most highly attended conference championship on the women's side in college basketball. But the fact that fans show up to Mohegan, they enjoy the product that they're seeing, obviously UConn a big portion of that, but how does that speak to the level of basketball this conference is producing, that people are showing up?
Quality basketball is appreciated. I mean, as we've had this conversation on the WNBA level, on the college level, you've heard marquee names in the NBA talk about how if you love the game of basketball, it doesn't matter who's playing. I mean, I think Kobe Bryant is a fantastic example in terms of his relationship with players. I mean, Jewel Lloyd from Notre Dame comes to mind immediately. But to appreciate basketball is to appreciate the game in all of its forms. Granted, is the women's game filled with a bunch of dunks? No. But if you can appreciate the nuances and the execution and people playing hard and leaving it all out on the floor, I think it's worth being appreciated. And I think women probably, especially athletes, I mean, as a little kid, I did not miss a WNBA game. We've known what the women's game is, but I think you look at dads and their daughters, you look at coaches maybe wanting to coach extended family or wanting to have a way to influence young women and to help empower them. The game of basketball does that. It offers that to us. And combined with where we are in our history as a country in terms of women stepping up and really taking their place and wanting the recognition that they feel they're due, women's basketball is good and it's only getting better. So I think it's just a perfect storm.
Monica, we talked about this, but mentioned viewership, WNBA, but even the NBA. What are some examples that you're seeing that are reflecting the growth in the women's game?
Well, the buzz this past summer was this 36% number, that the WNBA viewership was up that amount over the course of the season. And I think a lot of it has to do with our consumption habits. I think the WNBA's partnership with Twitter that will run through 2019, there are 20 games that will be aired there, helps. I mean, even here at the American, we put games out on YouTube on the digital network. If it's easy for me to consume, if it's right here, why not? I mean, I personally, I'm not a parent, but if I was a parent, I'd love for my kid to be watching basketball as opposed to some junk on YouTube in the back seat. And so I think when it's accessible, it's easy. Not only do I get to watch this team on Twitter or on YouTube or Facebook, wherever they are, I can also go to that player's page and connect. There's a new level of intimacy, may be a strong word, but there's a new level of allowing athletes, up-and-coming athletes, to feel that they're connected to some of their favorite stars, and I think that only makes you want to do it more. I mean, if I could have gotten on a phone and followed Diana Taurasi or Cynthia Cooper when I was coming up and playing basketball, I would probably have never put a basketball down because I need to do the exact same workout that she just posted. And so I think, again, it's one of those things that's a perfect storm. The game is growing because the game is good. I also think that young women are not, oh, I play basketball anymore. I play basketball and I'm good. I mean, you think about Steph Curry and his select camp, and he invited Azizi Fudd from St. John's, who actually crushed the three-point shooting competition. That was the first time he had opened his camp up to women, but I just think the conversation is so healthy, and I think there are so many male athletes who also acknowledge that it's healthy, because for women just to be ranting and raging about women's basketball probably wouldn't be as effective. But when you've got guys saying, hey, like, I've got 2 daughters now, Steph Curry, and it matters to me, or Kevin Durant and Breanna Stewart sitting down talking about Seattle, it matters to me. And so the way is just being paved. It's really fun to watch.
You mentioned a great point, social media, giving fans, giving aspiring basketball players that access to top athletes and teams across the country. In fact, many people at home watching us today on their mobile devices on Facebook, which leads me to my next question. It's actually a question for you, Monica, from Allie Lunsford, a fan tuning in. She wants to know who is slotted to be the top scorer in this league this year.
Man, that's a great question, Allie, and we appreciate you being engaged. When I think of top scorers, I go back to who was in that conversation last year, and you got to look at Jasmine Harris from Houston, and you got to look at Kitty Alaksa of USF, who we'll talk plenty about. While I think if some of the UConn players were on different rosters, they probably easily could fill that up, but because of the system that they're in, they don't necessarily have to. But I definitely think Kitty Alaksa is going to be in that conversation. And we'll talk USF a little bit later in the show, but this team for USF looks a little bit different than it has before, and so I'm wondering if some of that scoring will fall into her lap even more than it did last year. And you know she can fill it up with those 2 40-point games. And then when you look at Jasmine Harris, she's one of 3 for me in terms of this 3-headed monster for the Houston Cougars. Her game is very agile, it's quick, and she's versatile. And so I'm not so sure that she would be able to duplicate it again, just because I think that defenses may be able to key on her a little bit differently than they would Alaksa, but those would be my top 2 folks to keep an eye on.
All right, also shout outs to Mike Jones. He wanted to give a shout out to the UConn woman, and Sheila Crutcher, and she says Memphis 901. So we're going to get to talking about all these teams throughout the course of the show today. But first things first, the overwhelming pick to win it this year, the UConn Huskies. They're looking for their 6th straight American championship. Pretty impressive stuff. And they have some WNBA departures from between Gabby Williams, Kia Nurse, Azurá Stevens. Big shoes to fill, Monica. What role did that group play collectively?
Man, leadership. I think for me, when we have this conversation about that group and their role, it always goes back to last year's championship and the role of Azurá Stevens becoming the tournament's MVP. She was just so dominant. I mean, credited to her size, she was in the right place at the right time. I mean, she was very efficient, obviously, shooting at a better than 50% from the field in that particular game. And so the beauty for UConn is that Katie Lou Samuelson, Crystal Dangerfield, Nafisa Collar have all been trained for this moment. And so, sure, your seniors are gone, but that's basketball. That's the way that it goes. And so I don't expect there to be a drop-off. I think for me, especially from Crystal Dangerfield at that point guard position, just a heady guard. Like, I don't see there being a drop-off. It definitely falls in the lap of those seniors to make sure that there isn't a drop-off.
Yeah, and fans at home just got to look at some of those players that are going to be filling those shoes of the 3 that left for the WNBA. But Katie Lou Samuelson, the Americans' preseason player of the year. Monica, when Katie Lou is on, how difficult is it for teams to slow her down?
Let's see. How difficult is it?
We might be here a while when we come up with a plan.
It's pretty tough because Katie Lou on doesn't mean that Katie Lou is simply scoring. It means that Katie Lou is making the right pass. It means that Katie Lou is talking on defense. And again, I told you, when I stood next to her yesterday, I was like, oh, I don't have on any heels. You're pretty tall. I think Katie Lou on is not just an offensive threat. She can be a nightmare on the defensive side from sort of directing and leading her team. So I think the best you can do is make her uncomfortable and try not to let her catch the ball. So that means bumping her off of spots and defending her before she gets the ball. You see the numbers there. Goodness gracious, that kid is lights out from behind the arc.
And you think about who she had as her role models in her freshman season. I mean, you think Breanna Stewart, and Breanna was somebody who garnered a lot of attention, a lot of accolades. Katie Lou, kind of the same thing. How do you see her handling all of this success?
I think when you play at a UConn, I'd hate to use the word numb because those kids are definitely enjoying it. But I think you understand that for as much praise, there is probably even more work. I think that Katie is so focused on being able to play in a title game and winning a title that she's not going to hear the noise. I think that's what good athletes do. You develop that good tunnel vision. I mean, and it's all about what I'm trying to accomplish. When I looked at UConn's schedule, I don't know. They play Notre Dame again this season. They'll play Ohio State. But I don't know if they will be tested the same way that they were tested in the Final Four the past 2 years. And so I think when you are as dominant as this program has been, it behooves you to figure out a way to measure your success and whether you're on the right direction beyond just winning. And we're not privy to their locker room. But I think for them, it won't even be about we won by X amount of points. It'll be about, well, how do we look? How do we execute? Do we have the goals that we set for ourselves that nobody else is privy to? Did we accomplish those goals? And so I think being focused on winning is just how you deal with all the attention. You absolutely focus on winning. And it's annoying for us in the media when we want a good, juicy quote about something, but the next game is our focus. And that's sincere for this UConn squad. I don't know that they would say, and we'll find out maybe today, championship or bust, but I'm sure to a degree that's how they feel.
Katie Lou Samuelson, one of those players who does have a national championship, but she experienced injury in the postseason and didn't actually get to play in that championship game. So certainly a lot of fuel, I would assume, in her fire as she heads into this year. But when we look at this senior class as a whole, how important is this season when it comes to their legacy?
I can't even fathom the idea that my legacy hinged on a championship. You mentioned that they have one, and Nafisa and Crystal, I don't know that they played significant minutes when they won their freshman year, but they all have a ring. But I think the weight of the UConn torch is pretty heavy, I would imagine. It's an elite club to be a part of. It's such a family of accomplished women's basketball players, but I would hate for them to feel that if they do not accomplish a championship that it's a bust. But I think when you step into the upper echelon of women's basketball, as they have every right to have that opinion. I mean, they will still have numbers that hold on their own, whether they win a championship or not. They still will have had great careers in UConn jerseys. I think they've only lost like 2 games and they've won 100 over the course of their career. But that is important. Were you guys the crew that only got 1? What a question to ask, but that would be the question.
Yeah, big shoes to fill, you know, as freshmen, knowing that the senior class, when Katie Lou and Nafisa were freshmen, had won all 4 years that national championship. So a chance to go out on a high note in their senior seasons. But a team that's going to make it tough for them in the American this year is, of course, USF. These two have met in the championship the last 4 seasons. And when we look at the Bulls, there you see her, Kitty Alaksa. We've talked about her. She can kind of do a little bit of everything, but she certainly is the leader of this team. For USF to continue building on the success that they've had year in and year out, how important is Kitty Alaksa?
She is humongous, and not just from a scoring on the basketball court perspective, but also because of her leadership. She is the consummate leader for Coach Jose Fernandez, and she grasped that. We talk about that international flavor, Kitty being from Latvia, having 7 other international teammates. I mean, there are so many things that come into play when you step into a country that you're not familiar with. So she's got to not only lead on the court with her presence, but she's got to make sure her 6 freshmen are good. She's got to make sure her other international players, particularly the international freshmen, are good. And they know what to eat, what not to eat, you know, all of those good things. And so she's definitely the cog in the machine. What I will look to see in terms of her game this year is that assist number. Again, we briefly talked about it, but the spacing may look a little bit different for this South Florida Bulls squad. And so she may have to figure out a way to accept the attention that she will garner, whether it be double teams, whether it be zones shifting closer to her, and figure out how to make the right pass, because we don't want to wear her out. She's had incredible durability, and you also want to take solid shots. You want to take selected shots that are good shots and not just sort of be flinging the ball, unless the offensive strategy becomes shoot and we just go and rebound, which is not a terrible strategy either. So I'm looking to see how her game grows maybe this season as a passer.
Head coach Jose Fernandez loves recruiting internationally, and he has taken his team to the conference tournament final the past 4 seasons. What has Coach Fernandez done for the women's game?
I mean, you mentioned it, not only just the past 4 seasons in that championship, but he's had 9 consecutive 20-win seasons as well. And I think he has literally broadened the world of the women's game. We talk about those international players. We talk about he and his staff going abroad to recruit players. And then he doesn't just recruit them and they come and maybe for whatever reason they fizzle out, but they come and they have outstanding careers, and it becomes a pipeline. It becomes a conversation of how can I go and play the best basketball and get an education. As we know, Kitty Alaksa also gets it done in the classroom in terms of being a scholar athlete. He's literally opened it up. So I think that cannot be praised enough.
8 international players on this roster. Why is that a recruiting strategy that works well for this USF program?
The international game is different. I've got friends that have gone overseas and they come back and it's a little bit different. Sometimes they whine about foul calls. Listen, you can't whine about the referees. But I think that forces teams to strategize a little bit differently. Yes, the game is still basketball, but if I'm playing to the strengths of my players who grew up playing basketball in Europe, it looks a little bit differently. When you watch Coach Fernandez's group, they're always moving. And so that's something that we have to work to defend a little bit differently than you would typically just the average maybe American squad.
This looks like a whole list of wonderful places to visit,
And
might I
delicious
add.
dishes, I can't imagine.
But for USF, they're certainly happy to have these players here in the States suiting up for the Bulls. What young faces could make an immediate impact this year?
Well, you saw her on that list. I'm looking at the freshman, Eliza Pinzan, and so I will, full disclosure, I'm not exactly sure on how you rate players and such over in Europe, but she's one who came with national accolades in terms of this idea of her being a 5-star recruit, is what we call it here, from her home country. I mean, she's played in one of the top leagues in Italy, and so I'm looking to see if she can fill it up. But he's also got a 2,000-point scorer in Sydney Harvey out of Nashville, Tennessee.
USF is a team that has met UConn the last 4 years in the conference title game, and we see no reason for that rivalry to not continue this year.
You're watching the American Athletic Conference Women's Basketball Championship from Mohegan Sun in Connecticut.
Has Stewie all alone.
Number 1 Connecticut puts its unbeaten record on the line.
And USF is really fighting here against Connecticut.
Gino Auriemma's club wins the American Conference again.
Katie Lou Samuelson drills a 3.
Nice cut that time, feed inside.
Samuelson down low, using every inch of her 6'3" frame, leading USF in the championship game for the 3rd straight time.
UConn Huskies as they try to make it 5 for 5.
The steal by Williams.
Nurse, yes.
What a way to end an unbelievable quarter.
Dangerfield to Stevens, who runs the floor. The American champions for 2018. For the 5th time, it's UConn.
We're now joined here on the set at American Basketball Media Day by UConn head coach Gino Auriemma, as well as USF head coach Jose Fernandez. It's not every day that we get to have the league's 2 premier coaches joined here together. And I know you guys go way back, longtime friends, rivals, opponents, whatever you want to call it. But your programs have the unique opportunity of squaring off usually 3 times a year. What is the biggest challenge, I'll start with you, Coach Fernandez, of preparing for UConn 3 times a season?
Well, you know, when you have the premier program in your conference that has had so much success, you know, we embrace it. The only thing is that final week, we always play each other that final game, either up in Connecticut and Tampa, and then we meet like a week later, and we've already seen each other. But it's great. I think our kids enjoy it. As a coach, you want to coach against the best players in the country, and coaching, it's tough to coach against a friend, but a Hall of Fame coach, and it's a great experience.
Coach, for you, gearing up to play this USF squad 3 times a year, they bring a little bit of a different style, obviously that European style, that international recruiting. How do you approach the USF game, or all 3 of them each season?
Yeah, you know, like Jose said, it's tough because the more you see somebody, obviously, the more familiar you get with them, and his freshmen get really good real fast. So his kids are in the lineup for 2 or 3 years. So it's not like you're playing a different team all the time. You're playing the same kids who grow up and they get better and better and better. And we kind of know when we go into the season. And that's probably why we play some of our best basketball against them. We went down to their place last year, and I told our guys, I said, look, this is no joke. And they go, and I remember Katie Lou said, Coach, don't worry, we're ready. And they normally just kind of take every game but they know they have to get ready a little bit differently for these guys. One, their experience. The international kids are way different than the American kids. They just see the game differently, and they're a little more subtle with what they do. A little thing here, a little thing there, and every time you make a mistake, they get a bucket, you know. And they have more plays than Broadway, you know. So I mean, it's not easy getting ready for them.
So, Coach Auriemma brought it up, your international kids. It's something that is a signature to your program. Is that going to be your signature moving forward? I mean, obviously it's been very beneficial for you, but like, how did that come to be?
It's been very beneficial for us, and it just grew to that. And we've been matched up with Connecticut in the old Big East, where we had, 8, 9 teams go to the NCAA tournament, and the next 5 went to the NIT. And our makeup was a little different then. And then we switched to American Conference, which was a little different in recruiting, and it just worked out that way. But I think that the level of European players that we're getting, the international kids, all play for their senior national team, which would be the equivalent of the USA Olympic top team here. So the type of internationals are a little different than the ones that we get. And their preparation and their work ethic and their basketball IQ and their maturity level. And when they do come in, they're so much older with their travels, and they've played on their club teams against professional players from all over the world.
With UConn's dominance over, the past decade, recruiting international players seems to be becoming more common for programs across the country. How does that recruiting philosophy maybe help close this gap?
I think you got to have a good mixture. I don't think we can just do it alone with the international recruit. So you got to have a pretty good balance. I think our style of play might be a little different than Team C every night in, night out. But I think it's maybe closed the gap a little bit just because of the maturity level and the experience that the international kids get in the summer. They're not playing travel basketball, AU games. They're playing one game a week, and every game matters as well, and they're playing with their senior national teams in the summer. So I think that's helped.
All right, Coach, in terms of players that have gone on to do great things, I saw you at George Mason when Brianna and Kaleo won their title.
Yeah.
Stepping up this year, obviously Katie Lewis had a fantastic career thus far. The last time you guys had sort of that 3-year drought on a championship was 2010, 2013. Is it championship or bust? I mean, is that how your girls feel?
He knows how hard it is to win at the highest level. We sometimes make it look easy, but it's really hard. And these last 2 years, losing in the semifinals goes to show you how really hard it is. You have to be really good, and you have to be a little bit lucky too. So going into every season at UConn, if we don't go to the Final Four, that's a horrible year. And if we go to Final Four and don't win a national championship, that's a bad year. So what's a good year? You have to win a national championship. What's a great year? Well, you have to win a national championship and be undefeated. That's ridiculous. But we've done it. So it's not like somebody did it to us. We created that, and now we have to, how do you live in that world? It's like this year is not going to be as easy as it's been for us the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
So, Coach, I do want to press that just a little bit. It's happened twice. What did you say to your girls after the second time in the Final Four?
Yeah, after the first time, it was like, hey, look, this is what happens to every other team in the country when we come to the Final Four. They go home crying, and now it's your turn. It's just natural. That's life. After the second one, I was pissed. Like, that one was no, like, hey, it's fine, blah, blah, blah. Nah, I was ripped after the second one because, like, there was a lot of things that we didn't do that I think we could have done. But at the same time, Notre Dame makes one more play than we did, and they deserve to win. So you can rationalize it and say, well, what you think you're going to win 6, 7, 8 in a row? That's not going to happen. But after you get done that, you go, like, we should have done this, this, and this. But it was just, we just weren't good enough when we had to be good. And that's what goes to show you how difficult it is to win a national championship, because you can do everything right, but you got to have one player that at the end of a game or at some point during the game just takes over the game. And Enrique did that for them, and we didn't have anybody doing that for us.
One more Final Four question, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah.
I promise. I promise.
I mean, Coach, this is the story.
Okay.
But your seniors, Katie Lou Samuelson, Nafisa Collier, their freshman season, they didn't exactly have a normal circumstance with the seniors of that group
Correct.
who went on to win all four. So how much does that weigh in their mind as they see themselves here as seniors, having accomplished a heck of a lot more than most people ever have in the country, but not quite the same thing as them?
Yeah, that's part of what you live with if you come to Connecticut. You know, every day you walk into practice, you know, and you look up and you're reminded of it every day. So there's no hiding from it. So you have to have a certain level of confidence, and you're not, it's unfortunate, but they wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world, you know? So we kid all the time. Like, if you win a national championship at Connecticut, which they did, that doesn't even get you in the conversation for best players or best team ever.
Wow.
If you win 2, then maybe people will say, maybe. If you win 3, they'll go, wow, you were really good. But you still weren't that good.
Yeah.
So we laugh about it and we kid about it, but their own competitiveness is what drives it.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's no guarantee when you come to Connecticut that you're going to go to the Final Four or win the national championship. Nobody says that's guaranteed. So you just have to, like, come out, play, and do your best. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Man.
Coach Fernandez, for you, as one of those teams that has been chasing UConn all of these years, the more and more you play, usually, as we mentioned, 3 times this season, how much closer does it make you feel that you're getting to closing that gap with your program?
You know, we don't talk about, you know, closing the gap and this and that. As he knows, he's seen our team the last 4 years. We've played on that last final night on that Monday and Tuesday, and he's seen how upset and disappointed our kids are, because that's who we're chasing every day. And when, like he talked about, it's a disappointment for your fans not making it to the Final Four. Now where our program's at, we got to take the next step. If we don't make the NCAA tournament now, our season's a failure. So it's getting to that second weekend to get into Sweet 16, and then you get there, then what's the next step? But you know, when you have Connecticut in your league, we embrace it. Sure, there's a lot of programs around the country, they don't want Connecticut in the league, and they talk about, you know, the record that they have in the American. Well, they'd be doing that in any league that they would be playing in. And if you look back of what they did in a 4 or 5 year stretch in the Big East, they dominated in the same way. So, you know, we don't want to close the gap. We want to compete for a conference championship.
Yeah. Forgetting UConn for a second, sorry, Coach. But as you talk about the NCAA,
tired of talking about it.
We can talk about a lot of other things besides basketball.
As you talk about USF, how the NCAA tournament isn't just a goal that is set, but it's become an expectation, and how this next step is about making it into that second round. How does your team get there this year?
Well, I like our 2 seniors. It starts with them, and Laura Ferreira and Kit Yalasa has really shown that, you know, she can be one of the best players in the country. I think we have a great non-conference schedule that's going to challenge our team. We got to stay healthy, and our returners have to come along the way we want them to, and we have to have an immediate impact by the freshmen that we've recruited. And if we do that, you know, you take one game at a time, the end result will be there.
Now, Coach, I want to follow up on that, too. Will this team look a little bit different? Maria Jespersen graduating, while she's a solo, she was really a glue type of player and helped space the floor for Kitty. Do you expect to do things a little bit differently this season, or is there someone that's kind of going to fill her shoes?
Yeah, we'll be a little different in a variety of ways just because of who's going to be playing that position. We can move Ferreira down there to stretch 4 like Maria did, and she'll have to take more of a scoring role for us. She had a very, very good summer with her senior national team, and then came in and worked out at school for about a month. But some of the kids that we signed, like Sydney Harvey and Pinzan at the point guard spot, these are 2 freshmen that can come in right away. Jordow at the 5 spot, who has unbelievable experience internationally. I think Alyssa Rader can be that kid that can play down there in multiple roles.
Coach Auriemma, for you, obviously some pretty big shoes to fill with the departure of 3 of your players from last year to the WNBA. Some key pieces returning, though, as well. But who is a young face that you're really looking to this season that's going to have to step up and contribute some serious minutes?
I would say this is one of those years where, other than the 3 returning starters from last year, we're counting on players that made little or no contribution to any of the wins last year or the year before. So, you know, Nafisa and Gabby and those guys were coming off the bench when they were freshmen, and it was, I wouldn't say it was easy, but you know, you take out Morgan Tuck and you put in Gabby Williams, or you take out, you know, Stewie and you put in Nafisa Collier. Now, all of a sudden, we're like, if we take out Lou, who are we putting in? If we take out Crystal, who are we putting in? So we're in a situation that we haven't been in a long time. And somebody like Megan Walker, who has a year of college basketball, even though she didn't play a lot, has to make like a huge jump from hardly playing, hardly contributing, to now she has to be huge for us in every way. And that's going to be the difference between us being really, really good, or we're going to struggle in a lot of big games.
As we look at the conference as a whole, you both have been with your programs for a long time, but really quickly, Coach Fernandez, how does this conference take the next step? You know, there's in its 6th year, 6 years ago now, I guess, people didn't know where this conference was going to end up, but USF, UConn, mainstays in the NCAA tournament, sometimes getting that 3rd team in. How does this conference take the next step?
Well, you've seen the job that, for example, Katie's done at UCF, and they're different. They're hard to prepare for. The type of the kids that they've recruited in their style of play. I think they've really elevated the play in this conference. Ronald Huey at Houston. And I'm really happy for Ron, how he's taken over and he's built that program. And I think he's going to be a team that everybody's going to be talking about this year with everybody they returns. But, you know, Tanya and Temple, she went through those injuries last year. She doesn't go through that, but she had all those young kids get so much experience and so much time. Lisa Stockton has been so successful through all her years at Tulane. So I think it starts with those teams. When we're at the Big East, you saw how that league grew and how we all grew together, and we recruited better players, we developed those players, and then we scheduled the right way in non-conference. If we can continue to do that, the entire league will move and grow together.
You know, these last couple of years, well, how many years have we been? Like 5, 6 years, whatever it is?
You're 6.
6. Let's say you took us out of the standings and say, okay, we have 11 teams or whatever it is in the league. Take them out, and now let's take the other, what's left. And then look at the difference between number 2 and number 6 in our league. And every night when you watch them play, you go, you know, in a week, if you're 6, you could go to 2. If you're 2, you could go to 4. Just in 1 week, because you lose 2 games, somebody else wins 2 games. So the competitiveness of our league is amazing. It just looks weird because of us.
At least you acknowledge that, Coach.
You know, and that's serious.
Yeah,
so when people say, "Well, your league," well, no, it was the same in any league we've been in. But if you remove us and then look at our whole conference and look at the big picture, our league is really, really competitive. And you got to play every week, or you can go from getting a bye in our conference and having a shot at the NCAA tournament, and in 2 weeks you're out completely, because every game is going to mean something, and every road game could be an L. That's what happens in our league now.
One of the bigger topics that we've discussed today is just the overall growth of the women's game. And both of you have had hands in that happening. As it continues to grow, has it translated to the athletes that you're recruiting? Are younger girls consuming the game on their phone because it's available and the WNBA is more prominent? Have you seen it in your players in terms of their consumption habits of the women's game?
I think it's more than it was, I should say. I think the number of outlets that these kids have to watch so much stuff And you have to be kind of like a hardcore basketball person to go, yeah, I'm not playing basketball today. I don't have a game tonight, but I want to watch another game. Like, you really got to love the game to do that. And a lot of kids today, like kids most times, that have a lot of distractions, they find so many other things. Like, hey, you watch basketball when you're not playing? Nah, not really. Well, what do you do? Well, I do this, I do this, I do that. Well, what about, oh, that's a big game. I got to watch that tonight. So I think they're a lot like everybody else, but when they do choose to watch, I think the games they're watching are way better than they used to be. And I think the more that happens, the more high school kids see that there's more good college games on than there ever was. I think that's becoming, kids are more knowledgeable now. High school kids, they know. They've seen them play on TV way more than, let's say, 5-6 years ago.
Are your international players familiar with what's happening in the women's game here?
Yeah, you know what? It's when they're over there, they have the ability to watch games over here more now because the game's just grown so globally. But I mean, our international kids watch some really good basketball over there with the Euro Cup and the Euro Basket and the professional games being streamed over there, which it's great to see how they continue to stay in touch with watching very good basketball overseas.
And we make them watch sometimes. You know, we get some film and we show them. And sometimes you have to teach them how to watch games and what to look for and what's important. Because as coaches, we see a game differently than our players do. And we want them to look at the game, you know. So you're watching, you know, kids watching the game, and do you notice anything on the court? Yeah. What? I don't have the ball much. So you're just watching yourself, right? Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's kind of how they are.
Before we let both of you go, you guys can work together on this question, or maybe you have individual separate answers, but you've known each other for a long time, coached against each other for a really long time. What is your favorite memory?
Mine?
Coaching against each other, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have something that stands
I
out, or a funny,
yeah,
funny story?
I go back. One, he bitches on every call against us. Against us, every call is like he's getting killed by the refs.
They never foul.
We never foul. I tried to tell him all the time, we don't foul. Stop complaining to the refs. But here's what happened. We were talking in California at the Final Four, and he goes, hey, you want to play us? I just got the job, blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah, sure, we'd love to do it. We have to go down here anyway, a lot of times. So we'll play. So we go down there, we play them, and it was great. They come up to our place the following year. Game goes into overtime. And we got barely won. We barely get out of there at home with a win in overtime. I remember saying to him, I said, yo, dude, that's it. We're not playing you guys anymore. Then we end up in the same league.
That's funny.
At least you get to go second, right? You can rebuttal.
Well, like you said, you know, we always get, there's never a letdown when they play against us because our kids and their guys get up to play us. And I think it was conference tournament a couple years ago where Stewie went nuts. She didn't miss a shot.
Yeah.
And I look over at him and he goes, what do you want me to do?
Yeah. It's just sometimes, you know, you just can't do it.
That's awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate the work that both of you have done on behalf of the game, programs that we're very, very proud of.
Excited to see what both of your programs accomplished this season. It's been fun having you guys up here together, switching it up a little bit this year. So best of luck to both of you in the season ahead as we look forward to this fun little rivalry continuing here in the American. And while USF and UConn may exhibit two different styles of play, they are both effective in their own ways, much like two of their stars, Katie Lou versus Kidia.
Katie Lou versus Kidia. Katie Lou, a two-time All-AAC first-team selection. Kidia, a two-time All-AAC first-team selection. Katie Lou led the NCAA in three-point field goal percentage last year. Kidia led the AAC with 126 three-pointers last year. Katie Lou, a two-time AAC Player of the Year winner. Kidia, AAC Freshman of the Year winner in 2016. Katie Lou, two-time WBCA All-American. Kidia, two-time WBCA All-American Honorable Selection. Katie Lou and Kidia, both seniors, looking to prove they're the best in the American Conference this season.
Going to be a fun matchup to watch this year. Katie Lou Samuelson, the preseason player of the year, as well as unanimous first team all-conference selection, Kydia Lockset. Moving on, though, we have a whole bunch of teams and players to continue breaking down here at American Media Day. Let's start off, Monica, with UCF. The Knights are getting known to be a pretty physical team under their head coach, Katie Abrahamson Henderson. How does their physicality impact the way they play defense?
Well, you heard Coach Fernandez say it right here. They're a tough team to game plan for. I think when they get into that 1-2-2, it's something that teams don't see on a daily basis, and so automatically you've got to prepare to get the ball up the floor, which is something that's often taken for granted. It's a three-quarter court defense that they sort of get into, and then once they're in the half court, this team is talking, they're bumping. They are not a team that's going to overwhelm you necessarily with their size, but the way that they move and the way that they work on defense. I remember specifically being at the American Conference Championship last year, and KK Wright was one of those players, as well as Zakiya Saunders, who has since graduated from UCF, but the way that they talk, the way that they move, I mean, they're sliding, they're in their stance, they're getting to the three-point line, running shooters off the line, they're bumping the cutters in the paint, and so I think if you take for granted executing your offense, this is a team that causes some problems for you. I mean, they average 10 steals per game, and so you can't make those lazy passes because they'll get into those passing lanes or bump you just far enough off of your spot that the shot that would have been a good shot if you were a step or two in is now a bad shot or not even an option.
Let's talk about the offensive side of the ball. UCF graduated their top two scorers in Aaliyah Gregory and Zakiya Saunders. Monica, who will step in to fill that scoring role?
So I've got three players that I'm watching in terms of the scoring role, and KK Wright, Nyala Schuler, and Maseni Kaba for this team. I think what Aaliyah Gregory and Zakiya Saunders brought to the table was a lot of heart. But I think when you look at Coach Abe's system, these three young ladies are poised to kind of pick up where they left off. I mean, last season they were involved with the scoring and the output as well. And so while those seniors did a lot, it was not so load heavy that these three young ladies can't come right back in and step up. Particularly Maseni Kaba is someone who is on the glass, and I love that about her game.
Let's transition to Houston under head coach Ron Huey. The Cougars picked to finish third in the American this season, and Ron Huey's group has continued to take steps forward every single year, and we saw them in last year's championship. But for Houston, strong backcourt, Jasmine Harris, Angela Harris, not sisters, but they sure play pretty well together. How will they collectively lead the Cougs this season?
So I think the Cougs had a wonderful learning experience last year. It's no secret that Jasmine and Angela can fill it up. I mean, they can score, they can shoot the three, each averaging well into double digits. But when I looked at their schedule from last year as we reflect, they went on a 4-game win streak, and then they dropped 4 out of 5. And that was down the stretch of the regular season. And I think anytime you start to have a conversation about a team stepping up to the next level, there has to be endurance over the long run. And I think we take for granted how long the basketball season is. I fully expect this team to look different down the stretch. I mean, Sarethia Hawkins is another one that I think of in terms of that guard position being able to score. If they can sort of sustain it, they've got most of their scorers back. I mean, those three ladies, Angela Harris, Jasmine Harris, Sarethia Hawkins, all averaged double digits, but right under them was Dorian Branch, who was just a half a point maybe off of double digits. And so when you've got 4 players that can score, you decide to commit to defense, and you figure out a way to last the duration of a season, I think you're poised to make some things happen and be in a tournament come postseason play.
Hey, you mentioned the duration of the season, and Houston was a team we really started to get excited about throughout the year last year, but in the conference tournament, and towards that end, struggled a little bit. What is the key to playing the entirety of the season well?
Well, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, momentum is real when we talk about the game of basketball, and they were coming off of that skid that I just mentioned in terms of ending the season last year, and so they ran into a Tulsa team that was just playing with house money, essentially. I mean, Tulsa had their own woes last season, so when they got to the conference tournament, they were focused and ready to steal one from someone, and it happened to be the Cougs in that instance. But to get back to answering that question, I think you have to understand that momentum is essentially habits. And if you get in the habit of winning, you're in the habit of practicing good habits or of practicing good skills. You're in the habits of doing what you have to do to win a basketball game, which ultimately turns to momentum.
Well, conveniently enough, we're now joined here on the set by the Houston Cougars. It's head coach Ron Huey and second team selection Angela Harris. Great to have both of you with us as you get ready to tip off the 2018 season. How you guys doing? Good. Having some fun? All right, Coach, Let's start with you. Your program has continued to take noticeable steps each season under your leadership in the right direction. What can fans expect to see from your program this year?
You know, last year I think we took off just showing everybody how relentless we wanted to play, team identity. You knew what you're going to get every time you watch us play. I think we want to continue to take that to the next level, where we average about 78 possessions a game. We want to try to get to 90 this year. We got a little bit more depth, a little bit more size, a little bit more athleticism. So we want to try to just show up and show out.
Angela, for you, you got to be a part of showing up and showing out. Coach said it, but how do you get on the floor and execute and lead your teammates to make that happen?
You know, for me, for us, I had to set the tone on defense. You know, I felt like last year when I had games where I maybe didn't get a steal or I just wasn't pressuring my man enough, I felt like we lost those games. So, like he said, we want to play relentless. And to set the tone for me, like I said, it's playing defense. It's just defense.
Angela, for you, your team qualified for the postseason last year for the first time since 2011. So a great feat, but I'm sure your program wants to continue building off of that. What lessons do you take away, especially from how your team closed out last year?
Well, as y'all know, last year we ended on like a 6-game losing streak. And I just felt like, you know, with the way we play and we were only playing 6 people, I felt like, you know, it got to us because we didn't play enough people. And I think this year we have people that can play. We have a good 10 that can probably play, so I'm excited. I think because we have those 10 that can play, that we can make the NCAAs and probably go to a Sweet 16.
Now you and Jasmine have the Harrises, no sisters. I'm sure everybody here has asked you today if you are sisters, but you sure play pretty well together, leading your team in scoring. Why do you two have such great chemistry?
Funny thing is I've known Jazz since junior high.
You might as well be sisters, it sounds like.
The funny story is I went to a junior high in a small area in Houston, and she did too. We ended up playing each other. She came to my house, kicked the crap out of us, and that was the first time I ever met Jazz Harris, and I've known her ever since. And so, you know, we played AAU together our junior year, and that chemistry is just, you know, it's went on to college. And I feel like we play really well together. And if we're clicking, the team's clicking.
That's awesome. Chemistry is definitely important, Coach. But for you, you obviously don't get to suit up with the girls.
Exactly.
They learned from last year's skid, and you talk about depth and all of those good things. Day to day, in practice, maintaining this idea of being a relentless Houston Cougars squad, what are you pushing them to do? Are you relying on your leadership as a team, or are you individually, I need you to be here today? This is a daily thing. How are you pushing this group?
It's ultimately team every single day. We have a thing that we come in and we say family and we say all in. So everybody has to be all in on the same message. The next message behind that is no BCD, no blaming, no complaining, no defending. So we're all on the same page all the time, moving forward. And the third thing is we're all above the line. Being above the line means that you're holding your teammate accountable. They all have accountable partners too. Accountability is the biggest thing with us. So being that team that identifies with those 3 things is the things that we want to be able to push us through. That chemistry part, as y'all know, the locker room can pour out into the court. Their personal lives can flow out into everything. So we just want to try to do everything we can to build that family, that competitive nature, that everybody on the same page so we can be able to flow where we want to flow.
What was BCD again? I got to write this down.
No blaming, no complaining, no defending.
No defending. Wait, what's the no defending part? Defending yourself when you get called out.
Exactly.
No excuses.
No excuses. Yeah. Blaming, complaining, defending. I like that.
Everybody at home, live by those. So Media Day is all about predicting what's going to happen in the season, but none of it actually matters until you take the floor here in a couple of weeks. But your program picked to finish 3rd in this preseason poll by the rest of the coaches in this league, and that's a little bit different than when you took this program over a few years ago. How rewarding is it to start to have that sense of respect from your peers across the league?
Yeah, it's rewarding for me on the back end, but the front end, we're still not number 1. So if you're not number 1, you're last. And that's the mentality we still have.
For real, Coach? If you're not 1, you're last.
It's still the same
Even
mentality.
in the league with UConn?
Even in the league with UConn.
Okay, Coach. All right.
It's the same thing. It's crazy because talking to Gino, and he's like, I can't wait to get a chance to play y'all. I said, yeah, we got a little bit more length, a little bit more athleticism. I think we're going to be able to give you a little bit more push this year. And in recruiting, we signed a 6'4", we're looking at a 6'6", 6'7", and we're trying to keep going because, again, it's about being number 1, not 3rd, not 5th, not 7th, you know, that thing. So, again, if I don't have that mentality, then they won't ever have that mentality.
This is true.
But we can't let you guys leave this set without talking about your new home arena that you're going to be playing in this season. I don't know if UConn comes to it this year. I have to look at the schedule. But nonetheless, playing in the Fertitta Center a couple of years ago, amazing practice facility added to your campus. But to finally get to be back home, what is that going to mean for this program?
Oh, it's tremendous for us. We opened up our ESPN2 game against Texas A&M December 6th. In the Fertitta Center. Yes. I mean, state-of-the-art facility. That's just no bad seat in the house. You'll be able to see every inch of the arena, all of it. Even while you're buying food, you'll still be able to see the game. Tremendous lighting, billboards, I mean, marquees, every single thing. It's just tremendous. Mr. Fertitta, I just can't say enough about what he means to the university and our president and our student body, just to say that our athletics teams, not even just women's basketball, but the new football facility, everybody, and they're agreed to be able to put money towards us. And we're just blessed with where we are right now.
Awesome. Angela, you can speak for the team. You're in the locker room with all of your teammates, but getting to play in the Fertitta Center this year, back on campus, what kind of extra edge does that give your group, just having that excitement surrounding it?
Huge extra edge. I mean, we've been playing kind of on campus down the street at TSU, and it's just not the same. So now we get a chance to play back on our campus again, and I was there when we played at Hawthorne, so
seen the whole evolution.
I've seen from where it's bad to where it gets better. So I'm excited, and I know the team is very excited for that first game at Fertitta Center.
It's funny, we had Kelvin Sampson and Galen Robinson on the set earlier, and Galen, a similar position to you, he said the same exact thing. So he really appreciates the new arena because he's had to play in the darkness.
Yes, exactly.
All right. We wish you the best of luck, both of you, this season, and look forward to seeing what you accomplish this year. Thanks for stopping by the Coach.
I appreciate it. Good seeing you guys again.
Good luck. Well, Monica last night had a chance to catch up with the preseason player of the year in this conference, and that's UConn's Katie Liz Samuelson. Take a look.
Katie, you have accomplished so much over the course of your career already. How many basketball trophies do you think you have total?
I have actually no idea, but it's funny because my parents actually are currently using some of my trophies as hat racks. So I went home and I was like, wow, great use of my trophies, guys.
All right, so no one has to be told of what UConn women's basketball represents. Past couple seasons, hit some bumps in the road, we'll call it. What will be the measure of success for you this season personally?
You know, I think for me, it's my last year, and every time it's always been like, oh, I've got 2 more years, got another year after this, but it's finally just my last go-around, and so, you know, as a team, we're taking it day by day. I think a lot of times we can get ahead of ourselves. People can put pressure on us to get ahead of ourselves, and we really want to win each day. Our focus is on winning each practice, each battle, every single day.
We've seen so much on social media this season about Coach talking about his $100 bill phenomenon and how he coaches kids to the next level. In what way have you grown the most during your time under Coach Auriemma?
I think mentally I've become a tougher player than I could have thought I would have ever become going anywhere else, and I think, you know, I've expanded my games in so many different ways that that's thanks to the coaching staff just working with me every single day. But just knowing I can get through stuff, push myself to the limit, push myself past what I thought was working hard, I think he's really brought me to that point. So overall, I would say mentally I've grown the most.
Now, we know about your lethal three-point shooting, but in your opinion, what part of your game are you the most proud of?
I don't know. I mean, clearly I love shooting threes. I love shooting kind of anywhere on the court. My teammate was funny the other day. She says that whenever I shoot a pull-up, she's just running back down the court because she knows it's going in. So just having that confidence is pretty funny for my teammates. But I think, you know, each year I've improved at something I've been worse at the year before, and I've been trying to attack more and finish this year. So I'm hoping that translates into the games coming up.
This is the year, Katie. There is no more. Yeah. You said it yourself. How do you balance a sense of urgency, establishing your own legacy in a Husky uniform, versus enjoying it because it won't come back?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult, you know, playing at UConn. There's always that pressure and there's always that kind of expectation of the best at all times, and, you know, you want to put that pressure on yourself, but our coaches do a really good job of keeping us grounded and letting us enjoy little moments. You know, we have little games we play as a team, things that you remember past the scores of games or past the wins or anything like that. We spend time off the court together, and I think that's what I'm going to remember the most.
Have you had fun?
Yes, I've had so much fun being here.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
UCF head coach Katie Abrahamson-Henderson and senior guard Nayela Schuler join us here on the set at American Basketball Media Day. Great to have the UCF Knights with us as we gear up for the season to tip off in just a couple of weeks. Coach, your program has posted back-to-back 20-win seasons, 22 last year. What is the next step for this team in 2018?
I think to continue to go postseason, but obviously everybody's goal in this conference is to go to the NCAA tournament, and I know we have 7 seniors this year, so that's a big force to get there. So we're really excited. We have a lot of great upperclassmen, so it's going to be a good year.
Coach, it seems like your team has taken a lot of pride in its defense the past couple of years. It's one of the things that a lot of people notice right off the bat is this physical grit. Why is that important to you to play with that style defensively?
I think our players actually enjoy it, and it's a lot of fun. You can get some easy points off our press and get into the basket and getting steals, and it really ignites excitement, you know, when we do good in our presses, get traps, get steals, get easy basket. But I also think that defense really initiates our offense too. So when we do that and get really excited and pumped up, and I think it starts with KK Wright. She's at the front of the press, and everybody gets really pumped up watching her get after it, and she loves it, and so it really fires everybody up. But I think also it wears the other teams down too. They can't get comfortable in their offense. They can't get set how they want to get set. It really wears out their point guard, and so we actually play a different brand of basketball than everybody else.
For you, Nayela, Coach says that everybody loves the defensive part. That's her coaching on the sideline. You guys are the ones that are out 90 feet defending. Do you feel that way? I mean, how much pride do you guys take in what you're doing defensively?
I think the method is really in the madness. It's proven that it works, and once we saw that, that pushed us to want to get after it even more. So now in practice, we're competing against each other, and we take pride in defense, and we love it.
So when you guys are in this, it's a 1-2-2-ish kind of thing, Coach? Yep. Can everybody play each spot? Or is it like, KK, you got to dog the front. You know that's your spot. Like, do your thing. We're behind you. We got your back. Or is it, are you ready to rotate and jump into whatever position?
Well, the guards are kind of interchangeable in the front, so we can mix it up a little bit. And then in the back, we're kind of just set in stone. But we have a lot of different communication styles that we do, and we just love to talk about it and get after it and get in people's heads.
Oh, you know I love that defense, Coach. I love that defense.
Nayela, Coach mentions a lot of veterans returning on this roster, but of course, tough to replace Aaliyah Gregory and Zykeia Saunders. How do you explain your role heading into this season to help fill some of those voids?
Well, my role has always been to get our team ready to go and to try to make sure that we can come out to our best ability. Obviously, losing those 2 players are key, but we have a lot of different players coming in, a lot of newbies, some transfers, so I think we can surprise a few people this year.
Coach, what specifically is the key for Nayela? She's obviously here with you at Media Day, but what is the key for her to have her best season yet?
I would like her to shoot the ball a lot more. Nai's very unselfish, and Nai is that player that every coach wants on their team. She does all the little things that don't come up in the stats, and so she's a huge asset to us defensively and offensively, but I would like her to put up some more points and shoot the ball more. I mean, you'll hear me saying, shoot the ball, Nai, shoot the ball, you know, and her teammates really want to shoot it, but she's that type of player that she'll make the extra pass because she can make those reads to get somebody else open, which that's an unsung hero on our team, and she's always been that for us.
We know about the competitive balance of the American. You can be 2-6. Coach Auriemma just talked about it in terms of losing your position. USF is one of the teams that sort of has been chased. When you look at what you guys did against them last year, sort of different results. What has to happen to be that top 1-2 kind of punch in this conference for this group? You've got 7 seniors. Is this the group that's poised to maybe make it happen?
Well, I think it really hurt us last year. We lost 2 of our best post players, and so we didn't have them the whole year and getting into the conference play, and so we were playing guards at the post. That is hard to do, you know, and with a lot of size, but you know, I think it's going to be strength in numbers for us this year. We have a lot of numbers, which will really help the style of play we play, and especially the press. And so KK can get some rest. If you saw us play last year, actually KK and Moss and I played the most minutes, and that was hard to do. Press, you know, full court, 40 minutes a game, and just having them out there the whole time. We need to rest them a little bit so then they could get after it a little more, and maybe Nye will shoot the ball a little bit more.
Have some legs.
Have some legs out there to shoot the ball, but our numbers are going to really help us this year. And we'll have 5 post players this year. Last year we had 2.
let's step off the court for a second. You're going to be on it enough here in these next couple weeks as you get ready for the season. But Nye, for you, you graduated in August, redshirt senior, currently pursuing your master's. How are you balancing being a student athlete with all of this academic success?
It's kind of hard, I'm not going to lie, but we have great facilities at UCF, great people behind us that help us out, tutoring all the time, so I don't have a lot of free time, but it's worth it.
Free time is the devil's playtime, don't worry, you don't need it.
Sounds like you're using it wisely, though. What's next for you professionally once your basketball career is over?
Well, I'm hoping to get into med school. I just took my MCAT this past September, so I'm waiting for my scores, and once I get that back, then I'll know where I'm going from there.
That's exciting.
That is exciting. How proud does that make you?
Right.
I'm super proud. I'm super proud. That was one of our things in my interview that we talked about, and I'm really big on empowering women, but that's probably more important to me than anything. That's one thing I really want her to be able to do is become a pediatrician, and Mossany wants to do the same thing, and a lot of our players have really high aspirations to do some really good things and to be a strong leader in the community and do something like Nye's doing. That's pretty phenomenal. And taking her an MCAT during preseason, like who does that?
Yeah. No big deal.
Yeah.
You wear it well.
Coach, I know you mean that sincerely, but what does that mean, though? Because if she needed to step away and miss a part of a practice or a workout on behalf of what she's doing once her athletic career is over, you're good with it?
Yeah, I am good with that, but the team's good with it too. But also, we'll adjust practices for different situations. I mean, it's not like she's got to miss every single practice. It's like 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or on the weekend or something. So, I mean, I don't understand why everybody can't just change up a little bit to help our student athletes achieve what they want to get, especially in women in sports, because 1% is going to go play, professionally and getting their degree, and they come to these schools. And I specifically came to UCF to go to our med school because it's one of the top med schools in the country. It's a really neat place to go.
That's awesome.
We're all wearing these green pins today for Powerful Minds, and it's not only to end the stigma against mental health, but it's also to celebrate the bright minds that are in the classroom. So, Nye, great example of that and balancing both the athletic side and the academic side. So, congratulations to you. And looking forward to seeing what you all accomplish in the year ahead. Thanks for stopping by the set here at Media Day.
Thank you.
All right, UCF actually is one of the great facilities that exists across the American, a great place to play a basketball game. But a couple of schools will get to debut 2 new arenas and return to their campus in time for the season ahead. Cincinnati reopens Fifth Third Arena, while Houston returns to the newly named Fertitta Center. Both facilities boast state-of-the-art upgrades across the board. Fifth Third holding a little over 12,000. You see it right there, in progress, but it'll be done in time, we've been assured. And the Fertitta Center, over 7,000. Monica, how do venues like these continue to help build this league?
Instantly you think of recruiting. I mean, who wants to go play in the old, mundane? I mean, even things that are like historic and classic, they can be historic on the outside, but if the inside is not up to par, I mean, you're at a disadvantage in terms of recruiting. So that obviously helps teams recruit good players. I also think it improves the fan experience. We talked about women wanting to come and watch women's basketball play, and not just women, but dads and daughters, families, whatever, whoever wants to achieve it. If I enjoy myself in the arena, if it's comfortable, if I'm watching a good game or a team that I'm a fan of, and I get good snacks and it's not something crazy and the pictures turn out well on Instagram, then I'll be there.
Sounds like a great experience, and we'll be able to soak that in soon enough. But for now, we have more teams to talk about here today at Media Day. Let's move on to Cincinnati. They'll be led by first-year head coach Michelle Clark-Heard. As a new coach, how does she set the system for the talent she has now?
Well, I'm actually excited to talk to her about that today, because that is something that always has to be sort of weighed. And we had a similar conversation with Coach Adams at Wichita State last year when she got that position. There are things that Coach Clark-Heard does that have worked very well for her when you look at what she was able to do at Western Kentucky. But this team that she walks into may not look like the team that she had at Western Kentucky. And so there is that balance of becoming a player's coach versus also putting your staple on a program. And a lot of time when coaches get positions, you hear about that 3-year thing where they've had a chance to have some players come in, and then you are able to implement your program with the players that you recruited.
Cincinnati, like a lot of programs throughout this conference, will be looking to replace a couple of seniors, but they do have some young talent on their side. One of those players being Amari Thomas. She was last year's Freshman of the Year Where can she grow in year 2?
I think she just picks up right where she left off. I mean, she was someone that was on the boards. She was someone that was also able to score for her team. And so literally, you talk about picking up where you left off. That's exactly what she needs to do. I think that she'll be able to excel in Coach's new system.
Monica, real quick, as a former player, having a successful freshman season, what are the challenges of sophomore year? We hear people talk about it all the time, the sophomore slump. What are the challenges heading into year 2?
I think you just have to measure your expectations a little bit. There is no award for being sophomore of the year, right? You're up against the other upperclassmen in the conference for that 10 spots on the first or second team. And so I think you have to measure your expectations. It's literally, Haley, game by game, day by day, making sure that you've been honest with yourself in terms of the work that you've put in practice to be able to achieve those goals.
Not getting complacent, right? All right, let's move on to Temple. They lost Tainea Atkinson to graduation last year, who was obviously a major role player in terms of the scoring. How will Temple look to replace her this season?
Well, Temple gets Aaliyah Butts back, which is phenomenal for them. And any time that a player can miss a whole year and still come back and jump into the second team selection, I mean, you know that player is able to do some damage. She had a great season before she got hurt. And I remember at Media Day last year, we were kind of adjusting. And I think if we had to find a silver lining in her injury, it would be that Mia Davis was able to step up and really get some hard-earned minutes. I'm sure she had lots of conversations with Aaliyah over the course of the year as she was out.
Yeah, you mentioned Aaliyah's injury last year. Everybody kind of taken aback at Media Day and disappointed for her in her senior season, but she's back and ready to go this year. How motivated do you believe she'll be as she works her way back into the lineup this season?
Again, this is one of those things where I don't know that you appreciate something until it's taken away from you. So I can't wait to hear just how excited she is to get back out on the floor.
Well, perfect. We can hear it from the source herself. We're now joined here on the set by Temple head coach Tanya Cardoza, as well as Aaliyah Butts. Aaliyah, we'll start with you. Excited to see you here back at Media Day, healthy and ready to go for this season. How would you sum up what this past year has been like in terms of the challenges of having to overcome the adversity that you faced last year?
It was tough sitting out last year. Wasn't able to help my teammates and as they struggled, and just ready to be back and help my teammates for a better year this year.
How proud are you that you've been able to overcome that injury, be patient, and still lead your team from the sideline last year, but now come back and lead them for real this time?
I'm very proud of myself. It was a tough year for me. So being back and being able to help is just a blessing. I'm ready to do it.
Who stuck with you throughout that time to keep motivating, keep pushing you, keeping your spirits up? Because it can be tough when you're injured.
Yeah, it was my coaches and my family and my teammates. They all helped me through that tough time.
Coach, for you, seeing Aaliyah go through what she went through last year, I mean, I'll never forget talking to you at this exact desk last year, and you could see the devastation in both in your eyes and in Tanea's. It was a devastating loss for your team. But how proud are you that she's been able to just fight through that and be ready to go for this season?
I'm really proud of her. I'm proud of the fight. I'm proud of how she stuck with it. I mean, it's been a long year for her to sit there and know that this was your last year. And more importantly, her family had moved away too, so she didn't have that support. So it was really hard for her. But, you know, she stuck it out. She still remained really close with her teammates, and I think it shows now. You know, they gravitate towards her, and they have a really good, close bond.
Aaliyah's back. Mia is also a second-team selection. What can we look forward to in terms of the identity of this Temple Out squad this season?
I mean, we're still looking, still trying to figure it out. But one thing about us is we're always going to compete. We're always going to play hard. We're going to stick it together. Last year was tough because we were trying to rely on one player. We're not good when we're trying to rely on one player. We're at our best when we have multiple guys that are, you know, involved in the offense, and we're back to that. We have Aaliyah back, Mia, Imani, Desiree, I believe, is going to step up and show what she's all about. And we have some nice pieces at the freshman spot.
Well, you mentioned those freshmen, and Haley, I'm going to steal the question you just asked me. How do you keep your freshmen on pace? I mean, you're right. You've had Mia, you had Imani, who had outstanding freshman years. How do you keep them on pace now as upperclassmen, technically?
Well, the one thing is they look back and they know that last year wasn't great. Even though they got to be on the floor, we weren't winning. So that's not really a satisfaction. Yes, you got to play, but we didn't win basketball games. And I think collectively they all want more, so they've all worked really hard over the summer. Individually, I think their bodies all have changed. So you know how serious they are about it. but I'm looking forward to, continuing to get better at practice. It's going to be a long year. We're hoping that we can remain injury-free.
Hope so, Coach.
Coach, you mentioned that your team's not at its best when you're relying on one player to do the majority of the work. And obviously, Tanae Atkinson, your top scorer from last year, she was a vocal leader, and she just brought this energy to the court. Who do you expect to step up and just fill that role this season?
Well, Tanae was a great player for us. I mean, she's 5'9" and got 1,000 rebounds and 1,000 points. That says a lot. But we needed more. And I know that obviously Imani and Mia are two of the ones, but I think Desiree, she was injured a little last year. I think she's going to have a great year. Freshman Alexa, she's a big body post player. I think she's going to do well for us, as well as Marissa. But again, we're going to need 5 or 6 guys that really step up and look to score for us to be successful.
Aaliyah, for you, what has it meant to you to put on the Temple uniform each year?
It's meant a lot, like, going out and playing for my university and just not doing it for more than just me, doing it for my family, like the school.
What will be the key for you to go out on a high note at Temple in your senior season?
The key will be just coming in, being a better leader each and every day, and just trying to improve on what we didn't do last year and have a better season.
Well, thank you both for stopping by on the set here at Media Day. Excited to have you back in this conference.
You did great, Aaliyah. You did great.
Awesome. All right, well, Media Day rolls on here, and Monica actually had a chance last night to catch up with USF's Kadia Locke. So take a look.
Ready, Drew? 3, 2, 1. Kadia, the thing that stands out when you do a little research on you, you played in all 34 games last year, all 33 games the year before that, 29 games the year before that. How have you been able to be so durable over the course of your career?
I mean, that's the program itself. USF is a great program. Coach Fernandez is a great coach, and thanks to all of that, I'm here right now enjoying and preparing for my senior year.
So you're not drinking anything secret, special, like there's no secret formula that you can share?
Kadia's special drink?
Is there one?
No, there is not.
All right, on a serious note, you're a senior. You've got 6 freshmen. You guys have 8 international players on this squad this year. In terms of leading this team, how are you going to approach that?
Oh, that's going to be a challenge for me, and I'm excited. I'm excited because, I mean, I've been playing with great players like Courtney Williams my freshman year. I've been all around the place, and this is going to be a new opportunity for me to become a leader, lead freshmen, lead sophomore, lead juniors, and lead my senior one. It's going to be a great experience, and I'm really, really excited.
We talk so much about the international flavor of the USF Bulls. What would a team meal maybe look like? Or what does it sound like if everybody's speaking their native language in the locker room? Like, how does that even go, Kadia?
Oh, it's always fun in our locker room. It's a mess, and it's fun. Everyone's dancing, singing, talking their own language. But it's always fun to be around USF girls, and that's why I'm smiling right now, because just like thinking about it, it's very, very exciting.
As a senior, last question, it's coming down to the wire. How do you sort of balance the urgency of the end approaching versus having fun and enjoying it and keeping that smile on your face?
Oh, I'm taking it all day by day. Every practice I'm enjoying, every game I'm gonna enjoy, and everything we're doing with the team, it's great. It's great to be a Bull.
All right, Kadia, we're excited to get to see you do work this year.
Thank you very much.
We now welcome Cincinnati head coach Michelle Clark-Hurd to the set. First year at Cincinnati. Coach, great to have you here at Media Day as we look ahead to this season. Now, at Western Kentucky, you took your program to 6 straight postseason appearances, and your current program is coming off of its first postseason appearance since 2012. How do you keep that momentum rolling in year 1?
Well, I'm just really excited to be here and, to be back. I was here as an assistant 2002 to 2005 when we had a lot of success, and we went to the NCAA and produced a, WNBA player. And so it's just pretty awesome, and I have a great group, and they've been working really hard for us, and it's been really fun.
You mentioned having a great group. What was your initial impression of the talent that you inherited?
I'm very lucky as a coach, to have Nakira back with the leading scorer, Amari as freshman of the year last year. And then I just think some of the veterans that had an opportunity to experience being able to go to postseason. and do the things that they did last year, I think is really something. They were really excited and I think hungry for a little more.
So this is always super exciting in terms of transition. You're back in Cincinnati. What was the first team meeting like, or what was your first interaction with the girls? They're like, oh, this is our new coach. Let's see what's up with her.
Yeah, I think initially it was probably, walk in the room and it's kind of like, oh, and everybody get to know each other. But by the time we left the room, I really knew that this was a special group. How they kind of let their wall down within that hour and a half where we got a chance to meet and talk, I think really showed that we were going to have a chance to have some fun times together and just, we were talking about the things like the things I like, the things I don't like, and it was pretty funny because at first they were like, oh no, coach, and I'm like, yeah, but we can work with this or we can work with that. So it's been awesome, and I think that's been the greatest thing. Change is different for everyone, and I just give them a ton of credit because they have allowed myself and the staff to come in and just get to know them as individuals. And that's what we talk about all the time, growing every day, one day at a time.
What have been your priorities in terms of establishing your culture on this program?
Well, I think the most important thing we talk about is controlling the things we can control. So playing with energy and effort every single day and not looking at the level of who we're playing or what we're playing, but bringing it every day. And so I think you have to do that to establish a culture where you want to get to every single year, get into a postseason, get into the NCAA, get into the things that we want to do.
What are realistic expectations for this program in year one?
Well, I think just for us to be able to compete at the level we need to and to bring it every day and not have letdowns where we have games where we don't perform up to our ability. And then that's putting a lot, really excited for the seniors and putting them in the position that they're in right now. So everyone around growing every day. We need everyone on this team for us to be successful. And that's from, the newcomers to the seniors.
So how will you measure playing at the level at which you expect to play? Is there a number in your mind in terms of wins or place that you finish in conference? Or are there stats that will be signature to the Bearcats under Coach Michelle Hurd-Clark?
Well, I think that's an awesome question. I think it'll definitely be a lot of the stats. A lot of different things that we set forth every single day, the stats we take, the things we talk to them about, and as we try to build on that. And then, putting a number, I don't think is for us in this first year would be where we want to rank ourselves. It's what we need to do and bring every single day, because if we do those things, then the culture of everything else will take care of itself with wins.
We've talked a little bit about culture with you here on the set, but to those who are still getting to know you, fans, and maybe even the players and the parents to some extent, how would you describe the Clark Hurd culture?
I just think passion and pride and just bringing it every day. I think that once you all see me coach, and I think the players can probably tell you that I love this game. This game has given me a lot, and I want to make sure every single day that I bring that and give that to them. And so I definitely demand that from my staff and from people that are around me and from my players. And so I think that that's what that culture will be, how we will bring it and play hard and just bring that energy and just know that when we step in the building that it's going to be an opportunity to know that you're going to see just some great basketball and just fun, having fun.
You're going to know that the Bearcats are in the building, Coach. All right, so you mentioned Nakira, we mentioned Amari. Who maybe is a player that has caught your eye that maybe folks don't know about for this season?
Well, I think one of the players that has really, really stepped up for us, especially in these months that we've been there, is Antoinette Miller. She's going to be in a whole different role this year with the ball in her hand a lot. And I think we all know how important that point guard position is. And I've just been really, really impressed with her and how she's allowed myself and this staff to really, really help her grow and help her grow into what we are seeing, how she can flow to be one of the leaders. There's a lot of players that have, I think, grown in a lot of different ways, and so I'm proud of that. And I think that'll happen every single day. I think there'll be different players that step up for us at different times. And so we're pushing them every day so they can get to that point.
Without giving away the secrets, what sort of will be the signature for this group under you, besides obviously the energy and the effort and those things that you can control? I mean, are we going to see defenses that make teams uncomfortable and maybe three-quarter court? Are we going to see lots of three-point shooting? I mean, what's up, Coach? Give us a sneak preview.
Let's see.
Just a little bit.
What I would say is definitely our defense. We pride ourselves on that. I think we'll try to put it in a position. I try to tell people that I want them to have fun on offense, and we want to control the defense. So that means that we want to disrupt people and change up defenses, do a lot of different things. So we can put them in a position where they feel very comfortable on offense, where we can get out and kind of run and do the things that we need to, but also understanding and knowing that in those change-ups, you want to make other teams uncomfortable.
For sure.
And so that's something that we'll pride ourselves on.
For sure, for sure.
I loved how you said a few minutes ago, you'll know that the Bearcats are in the building. And when you were at Cincinnati the last time, the building you're going to be playing in looks just a little bit different.
Great
Fifth
point.
Third Arena. As you prepare to take the court with your team in this brand new arena that your team's going to get to enjoy, fans will get to enjoy, how excited is this group as a whole to have this atmosphere to play around back on campus?
Well, they're so excited, and we're so blessed to be able to be in that situation where we will have this newly renovated building right on campus. And so it's going to be beautiful. They've done amazing with it, and I know our girls and everyone else, we're just so excited to just be in there and be able to bring that, as you said, that excitement, that energy in the building and everything else. So we're really excited, and we're looking forward to it.
Good timing to have you back on campus at Cincinnati to kick it off with a bang. Well, thank you so much for joining us here. Best of luck to you, Coach, in year one.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
All right, as we move on here at Media Day, we have a whole bunch of other teams to get to. Monica, let's take a look at SMU. Alicia Frawling is back in the lineup after suffering a devastating injury last season. How will that impact the Mustangs to have her back on the floor?
Again, and we've talked about this already, anytime you've got a player who's missed a primary chunk of, or missed the entire last season for that matter, the way Alicia Frawling did and the way Aaliyah Butts did, and they are still selected as a second-team preseason selection, it speaks to what they do. I mean, Alicia Frawling, what she's been able to do in an SMU uniform has just been incredible. She's been a double machine in terms of her production, and so that immediately impacts the spacing for this SMU team. You have to account for her offensively and defensively, and it'll open up other opportunities for some of those shooting guards.
Let's talk about ECU. At times, we saw this fiery squad. How can the Pirates take it to the next level?
Well, I think the Pirates have to avoid deadly runs. And when you comb through some of their stats last year, there was always this drought where they allowed a team to go on a double-digit run. Sometimes it was at the beginning of the game, sometimes it was in the third quarter. But once that happened, they struggled to close that gap. And I think they've got the talent on that team to be far more competitive than they were last season. But it's going to be imperative for them to keep pace all year long.
For Tulane, Colby Morgan graduated. In fact, her picture is on this 5-year anniversary poster, so she obviously left quite the legacy at Tulane. How does Lisa Stockton move forward with this group?
Well, Colby Morgan did so much, right? And now it's just about figuring out a way to balance things out a little bit. I mean, when you look at their statistics last year, I don't know that they necessarily had an identity outside of Colby Morgan. They shot, I think, 3 percentage points higher than their teams. They shot like 33% and allowed teams to shoot 30%. So when I'm watching Tulane, I want to see them establish an identity. Are they going to be a team that's pesky and in the passing lanes defensively? Are they going to be a team that makes you sit down and defend them as they take their time to execute in the half court? Because the explosive scorer that Colby Morgan was, she's no longer on that team. And so I think if this team figures out what they want to do, what they want to be branded as in the American, that'll help them begin to take some steps forward and get more W's.
For Wichita State, they are not the newcomer anymore. In fact, they made a pretty good statement in year one in the American, in fact, knocking off USF in the regular season. How do the Shockers follow up on the good start that they had in this league?
So I want to get this right, so I'm going to read my paper. This is a quote. Their senior communicator, Paul Sullentrop, pointed this out about their schedule. He said, Wichita State went 9-7 in the American last season and finished tied with Houston in 5th. The Shockers don't play a team that finished ahead of them last season until February 10th at Cincinnati. The schedule of the American could give Wichita State a chance to acclimate before the schedule toughens in February, which, Haley, I think is going to be huge for Coach Keitha Adams' group. She's got 9 freshmen this year.
That's a lot.
9 freshmen. But you saw her implement her system with those girls, and the seniors that she had gravitated toward it early, and they understood the sense of urgency. 9 freshmen, maybe they don't have the same sense of urgency, but what they have seen is that our coach has a system that works in this conference. And so whether you're a senior or not, as a competitor, you want to buy into that system. So I'm excited to see how she gels with all of these newcomers, and if this team can sort of follow up that performance from last year. I love what Coach Adams does in terms of the X's and O's. They got that huge upset last year versus USF. So I definitely think this is a team to keep an eye on.
Well, it's important to note as well, while Wichita State is new to this conference, Keitha Adams is in year 2 as well, with the Shockers in year 2 of the American. So she's still building her program in Wichita. But for Memphis, there's certainly a buzz in that city surrounding basketball. We talked a lot about it on the men's side this morning, the conference championship on the men's side headed there this season. Monica, for the women, how do they match some of this buzz and excitement? We just saw Memphis Madness take place. It was a packed house, both programs participating in that. How do they keep up with this buzz and excitement going on in that great city?
Well, I think part of what has to happen for Memphis is they have to maintain a healthy roster. The past couple years have probably been down by Coach Melissa McFerrin's and that Memphis program's standards, and sometimes that happens. It's the ebbs and flows of being a college basketball program. But I think the additions she has, like Camille Buchanan and Melania Rudy White, I mean, they were both ranked 30 or better by national publications. And so I think if her group can stay healthy, Coach McFerrin has the resume in terms of taking her teams into the postseason, whether it be at American or Memphis. But it's a matter of this group staying healthy and being able to, again, we talked about it earlier, endure the duration of a long season.
Last but certainly not least for Tulsa, they pulled off a surprise upset in the conference tournament against Houston last season. How does Tulsa take a step in the right direction this year?
I think you stay with that momentum. I know that game was a long time ago, but it goes to show you that we belong. And when you finish the season the way that Tulsa did last year, sometimes maybe some of those doubts creep in a little bit, and you wonder, do we belong? Can we compete? Coach Auriemma, whose seniors have gone 102 over the course of their career, said to us earlier on this set that it's hard to win basketball games. And so that also applies to Tulsa. As easy as UConn makes it look, winning basketball games is hard. But I think if you're Tulsa, you look at what you were able to do last year in the American Conference Tournament, and you think to yourself, we belong. We can do this. We just have to figure out a way to duplicate this performance night in and night out. You think of Crystal Polk, Shug Dixon, Alexis Golden, they all return. And so I think for a team like Tulsa, you literally set goals and you check that box off, and then you do it consistently. You build those habits. You create your own momentum. And so for Tulsa, why not us, right? Russell Westbrook, why not us? Go in and play basketball. The game of basketball is the game of basketball. And like Coach Auriemma also said, sometimes it's about timing, a little bit of luck, and who plays better that particular day. So if I'm Tulsa, I'm just going in to improve. That's my goal.
Well, why not Alicia Frawling up next, because you had a chance to catch up with the SMU star last night. Alicia battling back from injury last season. Take a look.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Alicia, you were very, very productive when you were on the floor. Last year you suffered a tough injury. Yeah. But sometimes in adversity we learn a lot. What did you learn about yourself and your team last year?
I don't think I realized how big my impact on the floor was. I think that, coaches always said stuff like, the team goes with you, but I kind of just went out to play. And now I realize, the power I can have and the power that my voice has and what my actions do to my teammates. So I think I take that in mind a lot more, especially with such a young team this year.
So I know you're anxious to get back on the floor and get back to that productivity. How will you measure your success this season?
Honestly, I kind of done all the individual stuff. That's it. I really want to make it to the NCAA tournament. So that's a team thing. That's our goal. So that's going to be my success, is how well this team goes, especially because we are young. Just testing my leadership to see, what, it doesn't matter. We've got the talent. We can do it together.
A double-double machine seems fitting, but we were just talking and you said you basically grew up in the gym. Yeah. When did you know that you loved and really wanted to play the game of basketball?
I guess probably when I was about 15 and I made my first Australian team. And I was just like, wow, this is so much fun. I'm traveling the world for free. I'm seeing all this amazing stuff. My friends are at school. So I think that's when I really knew this is what I wanted to do, and I just loved it, and I guess I haven't looked back since.
As we head into 2018, 2019, what are you most looking forward to this year in the American?
Just playing basketball. Obviously, it's been almost 12 months to the day since I got hurt. So it's been a long, tough road, but just playing in such a great conference. I know a lot of people. I've met so many good connections. So it's just, I'm so excited to play.
Thanks, Alicia. We're excited to see you.
Thank you.
Alicia Froling, just one of the impressive student athletes in attendance today in Philadelphia. And players across the league, going even beyond the basketball court, have bonded together to raise awareness for mental health. The Student Athlete Advisory Committee on each campus is on a mission to end the stigma and to promote powerful minds.
Strong in mind, strong in body, strong in school, sport, life.
The grind is 10% physical and 90% mental.
The mind is the power.
The body is a means to jump higher, run faster,
be smarter, and live longer.
There is no weakness when it comes to seeking help.
We are stronger together.
So let's talk about it.
A waterfall starts with one drop.
Change starts with one person.
The American is dedicated to ending the stigma related to mental health
and promoting success through a healthy, powerful mind.
Promoting success through a healthy, powerful mind.
Powerful video, but more importantly, a powerful message that we saw right there. We're now welcomed here on the set, by Dr. Jeremy Jordan, the faculty athletics representative at Temple, and by David Fitzgerald, who is the SAC vice chair, and he happens to run cross country and track and field at Temple as well. David, let's start with you. For people who are still learning about this Powerful Minds initiative and why student-athlete mental health awareness is such an important topic, what are you currently doing at Temple to help raise awareness for this cause?
Yeah, so this is one that's really interesting for everyone throughout college athletics. About a year and a half ago at the Summer SAC in-person meetings, someone suggested it as our upcoming initiative for that year. And everyone's eyes kind of lit up. And it was because everyone in the room had either been individually affected or knew someone that had been affected by it. And so we decided to move forward with it, and we really wanted to end the stigma behind asking for help. So many people are struggling with mental health issues and just don't want to ask for the help, and that's really what we wanted to fight. And there's been so many things we've done, not only at the conference level, but on Temple's campus. We've not only had everyone here in green pins, but we've brought in full-time faculty. We've had everyone at their games wearing whether green shoelaces, wristbands, or ribbons on their uniform. It's been really great.
Jeremy, if you would, explain to those watching today the role that you play as the faculty athletics representative at Temple.
Sure, it can be a mystery to people sometimes. So every institution that's a member of the NCAA is responsible for having someone who's outside of athletics, who serves as a liaison between academics and athletics. Very simply, I tell our student athletes I'm an advocate for them. So my job is to make sure that they have a positive experience while they're at Temple, not just on the field or on the court, but their whole academic experience as well. And so this initiative, it's very important for faculty athletic reps to make sure that we're connecting student athletes to the appropriate resources, that we're providing the support that they need to run the initiative, and just being part of the conversation. And so it's been an exciting opportunity.
It is such a needed initiative and move, you guys putting this together, especially I think because athletes, so often we're taught that it's powering through and be mentally tough and work through it and work through it. Is it a different conversation when you talk about mental wellness for athletes at all, just because we're trained to just power through?
Yeah, absolutely. From a young age, student athletes are certainly raised to be tough, fight through injuries, fight through academic hardships, and really this initiative was interesting because you never really sit back and think about your mental well-being. You're always thinking, my foot kind of hurts, how can I get on the line to race this weekend? Or my elbow kind of hurts, how can I pitch this weekend? But through all of that, mental health often takes second, and we really need to start looking at that first.
David, you're around student athletes every single day. Why do you believe individuals are so reluctant to seek help?
I think it's because they are just feel like they need to be strong, and that's what we want to remove. Is asking for help doesn't make you not strong. If anything, it makes you stronger because you're willing to go out and find someone to help you. And I think people don't want to be vulnerable because as student athletes, we're looked up to on campus, and you just want to be tough, and that's not what it means to be tough.
There are some really mind-blowing statistics surrounded by this initiative. In fact, 30% of student athletes, according to surveys, say that they experience some sort of overwhelming anxiety during their time in college. And David, you can speak to this. How challenging is it to balance the academic and the athletic piece?
Yeah, so I'd certainly like to preface that with saying being a student athlete has been the best job I've ever had, but that doesn't mean that it's not stressful. Most student athletes come from a background where they were the best athlete in their state or even on their team, and now you're going into a position where you're trying to compete for a spot to even make a starting roster or potentially stay on the team. It's just a lot different, and it's a crazy adjustment that student athletes have to make. They have 20 hours of practice, They have time outside of practice in the recovery, and just all sorts of things that you don't necessarily think about when you go in, and it's kind of a shock to your system.
There's also some startling statistics out there with regard to suicide as being the third leading cause of death among young people between the ages of 10 and 24. How aware do you find people are of these numbers?
So it's important to understand that this is a campus-wide issue. It's not just a student-athlete issue. And so hopefully what's happening is by student-athletes kind of moving to the front and saying, it's okay to seek help. It's okay to ask someone to help you through these rough times. It makes other students more comfortable. It's a thing that all of our universities deal with in terms of young people and anxiety and depression and suicidal ideations. So it's really important to have the conversation. So before it gets to that point, raise your hand, find someone that you can talk to, because that's likely to prevent it from getting to something that's much more serious.
This is obviously a conference-wide initiative. Yeah. Everybody in attendance today wearing the green pins. We just got through Mental Health Awareness Week across all sports, but specifically at Temple, where both of you spend a lot of your time. What has happened there on campus to support the Powerful Minds Initiative specifically?
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have a university and an athletic department that puts this as a priority. And so over the last couple of years, we've hired full-time mental health professionals specific for athletics to make sure that our student-athletes have the resources that they need, and it fits into their schedule. Student-athletes don't have normal schedules, so it's difficult sometimes to access the resources. David and the other members of SAC have been very active talking to each team and talking to the collective about, here's what the initiative is about. The goal is to erase the stigma and to just start having those conversations. And so things are really, really going well. In terms of the conversation. Sorry.
No, that's all right. It's great stuff. David, maybe you can speak to this, but all of these resources that Jeremy's talking about, how have those made a difference? Have you noticed a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of the surprise of this initiative for me, was how quickly they threw all the resources behind it. After the summer SAC meeting, I came back, met with Dr. Jordan, who was there with us, met with our athletic director, and met with our compliance staff. And rather than them saying, all right, let's slow down, take this one step at a time, they were immediately bringing people in for interviews for mental health positions and having the student athletes help interview them. The resources have really been incredible. We hired Dr. Stephanie Coakley at Temple, and she now meets with all the teams on a semester basis to basically say, hey, I'm here. Come to me if you need something, and you can also refer a friend to me. And it's really just been huge to have this not as an outside resource, but something within athletics that everyone is normalized to go see.
When there's a problem as big as this, sometimes it feels like you're climbing a mountain to try to solve it. So it's obviously one step at a time. But for both of you, as you take it in stride year by year, what is one goal you'd hope to accomplish this year to make you feel like you've taken a step in the right direction, especially on campus at Temple?
I think it's just seeing an increase in the conversation, normalizing it. That it's, again, student athletes and students in general are very comfortable going seeking medical help for whatever is ailing them. And this is just part of it. And understanding that more people have gone through this than haven't. And so if you're dealing with it, there's someone else that you're connected with that also has dealt with it and just is willing to have that conversation.
David, for you, what would make you proud at the end of this year to have seen happen in regards to the Powerful Minds Initiative on campus?
Yeah, for me, if you had asked that a year ago, I would have said bringing in a mental health professional, and we succeeded there. But really, Dr. Jordan asked me that question about a week ago, and it kind of made me think, because I was still taken back by how quickly we had gotten to where we are. And for me, I really want to normalize it and make it something that you do, not something where you need help before going and talking to someone. I think it would be great if we could incorporate it into standard athletic training, where at the beginning of the year when you go in for your physical, you also meet with Dr. Stephanie Coakley and just talk to her.
You see people in attendance wearing these pins today. We saw stickers plastered across the backs of helmets across the conference a couple of weeks ago. So pretty neat to see this once raw idea coming to fruition not too far later. But I guess how much encouragement does it give you seeing the steps that this has taken moving forward, that people are buying in, they're promoting it, they're starting to talk about it here, and it's actually becoming a part of not only games and events, but just events like these?
The thing that's really exciting about it is it was a student initiative. The student athletes came up with this. It was their idea, and they really wanted to drive it, and they have been the force beyond all of us wearing these pins and having this conversation. And so for me, it just speaks to the leadership that we have with this conference and our student athletes, and how even when they're not playing anymore, they're going to continue to go out and to have this type of impact on their communities. So it's, from a faculty athletic perspective, it gives me great pride to see what they do.
It's great to see your work in motion, especially here at Media Day. The last question I have, David, for you, what would you say is the most important way to remove the stigma for seeking treatment for mental health?
I really think that making it something that everyone does is the really important aspect, because a lot of people still, even though we've worked towards removing a stigma, don't want to go ask for help. Whereas if everyone's meeting with mental health professionals and they're just part of the staff, the same way that I can go up to Dr. Jordan and just talk to him about what happened at my race this last weekend, if they can be incorporated in that aspect, I think we can really see some success with people being comfortable asking them for help.
And while this initiative is about ending the stigma for mental health, it's also about celebrating the powerful minds that are in the classroom. There's so many great things going on campus, so many amazing achievements for student athletes, balancing that athlete life and the academic life. So a really positive initiative. Great work by the both of you, and excited to see what the future has in store.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks to both of you for your time. Again, that's the Powerful Minds initiative here across the American Athletic Conference. And a student athlete that is using her powerful mind both on the court and in the classroom is Tulane senior Harlan Wyatt. Once her playing days are over, Harlan actually wants to become a sports reporter. And I had a chance to spend some time with Harlan last night here in Philadelphia. Okay, it's the night before Media Day here in Philadelphia. I'm joined by Tulane senior Harlan Wyatt. Harlan has some big-time aspirations after her college basketball career is over. But Harlan, your second year here at Media Day in Philadelphia. What's your favorite part about this event?
Definitely the photo shoot and taking pictures and just spending time with my teammates and my coach. We also get to be in a lot of cameras and doing a lot of video stuff, and that's always fun, since that's what I want to do after I graduate.
So after working really hard in the off-season with your team, what do you expect to see when your team finally gets to take the floor here for a real game in just a couple weeks?
I definitely have high expectations, but I know that our hard work will show out in the games, and I'm really excited with our senior season to go out with a bang.
You're a senior, you want to go out with a bang, your final season putting on this Tulane uniform. How would you describe your role on this team?
I take the leadership role, and we have a lot of young players, so I definitely take the leadership role and trying to keep things in order on the court. I know the coach is counting on me, and I know they all look up to me. But now let's talk about your role.
I'll give this girl the mic.
Now it's my time to ask you some questions. So before that, you were working with the American Conference. What were you doing?
So I played soccer in college at East Carolina, and then I actually started my reporting career working in minor league baseball for the Chicago Cubs. Sorry, Cubs fans out there. But yeah, I just tried to get as many reps. I interned at ECU and then in minor league ball, and then I have been at the conference for about 5 years now.
Oh, nice, nice. And you know, all athletes have like a pregame ritual before they for the game. Do you have like a pregame interview ritual that you do?
Oh gosh, well all of my friends at the office make fun of me because I always have to have the hair on point, so I'm always flipping the hair, making sure you don't have those flyaway strands. So I don't know, I'm big at I gotta get the hair right before we shoot.
We'll always catch Haley on fleek.
Exactly, on fleek. And you guys can actually catch Harlan this year because she is our campus correspondent at Tulane. So Harlan's going to be doing features for us all year long on the American Digital Network while she's playing basketball because she's a baller and she can do it all. So thank you, Harlan. Keep an eye out for her on the American Digital Network this season. And best of luck to you, Harlan.
Thank you.
Monica, Harlan Wyatt coming for both of our jobs here.
Indeed. It was so funny that I recognized her from, she made me feel old, but yeah, Harlan's doing a great job.
She was asking the hard-hitting questions. So we're excited to have Harlan Wyatt on our Campus Connect program this year. You can catch her features on the American Digital Network throughout the season. So always great catching up with some aspiring journalists. We've all been there, right? But as we close out the show, we were actually supposed to have Andy Katz here on the set, and you can head over to Twitter at American_comp to catch his final roundtable discussion of the day. But don't leave us just yet because we're going to wrap up the day here in Philadelphia. Monica, every year it seems like there's no question that UConn is going to be in the Final Four. It's not a match. It's not really a question of if. It's just a matter of getting to that point. But for UConn, they have to replace some star players. What's going to be the key for this group to get back to the national championship, to get Katie Lou Samuelson, Napheesa Collier, that national championship in their senior year?
Well, I think Coach Auriemma told us, and he said it was going to be who else is going to be on the floor outside of those three returning starters in Napheesa, Katie Lou, and Crystal. And so there's going to be other pieces that have to step up. He's got two freshmen that folks are really excited about. Both played on the national teams over the summer prior to coming to UConn. Megan Walker, I'm glad he said it. She's someone who I have sort of circled on that roster as well in terms of being able to step up and contribute. And so I don't know that there's so much responsibility on the three names that we know. I think this is truly going to be a masterful team effort by the Huskies, and so I'm looking to see who is going to fill in the gaps for UConn.
Some more question marks than usual for this UConn team, but definitely one that will continue to most likely have success based on history. After analyzing and talking through teams, players, coaches today, looking at the preseason poll and having some of these interviews here on the set, who's given you some confidence? Who's your sleeper team?
Oh, my sleeper team. I don't remember where the polls fell out off the top of my head, so this may not be a sleeper. But I'm very curious about Cincinnati under Coach Hurd Clark. I keep flipping her name.
Michelle Clark Hurd.
Michelle Clark Hurd. Okay, Clark Hurd. I'm very curious to see what happens with Cincinnati. I think that when you bring together the combination of experienced seniors who know the American and then a coach who has a system that has gotten her to the postseason consistently, and she's accustomed to winning, even though it was a different conference. We talk about the habit of winning, which she has. I think that there's something magical that may happen there. I mean, when she talked about her chemistry after meeting her team for the very first time, I mean, her eyes lit up. It was so genuine. Yeah, it was very genuine. So I think when you're able to connect quickly and everybody's common goal is winning, and there's a trust there that doesn't take years to develop. I mean, to some degree, the more I know you, the better I trust you. But in the beginning, if the players decide they're going to trust their new head coach, and the new head coach is clearly very enthusiastic about the possibilities with this team, I think there might be something special afoot in the new arena for the Cincinnati Bearcats.
Something to keep an eye on for sure. We had a chance to talk to Coach Auriemma and Coach Fernandez here on the set, and they mentioned how competitive this league really has been 2 through 6. Even though one has sort of stolen the headlines, stolen the show, 2 through 6 has oftentimes been overlooked, and that has been really competitive. How well positioned is this conference to have a strong year collectively, in your opinion, this season?
Well, I think you have to look at the big picture of women's basketball when we start to have that conversation. And the ACC and the SEC in terms of women's basketball are still forces to be reckoned with. You think of the last 2 national champions. They did not come, obviously, from this conference. But I think this conference could be on the cusp of getting that third team in. It's going to be largely weighed on what these teams are able to do in their non-conference schedule. The likelihood that we get an upset in conference play of UConn, I'm not going to rule it out, but I don't know that there's a team other than USF who is poised maybe to do it at this point. But I think that if everybody is handling their business and there's still some games in terms of those RPIs in the non-conference schedule, then you're looking at this team a little bit different. Oh, maybe 2 through 6 are beating one another up, but 2 through 6 also have wins over teams out of the ACC, the Big 12, or the SEC. And so I think it's imperative that this conference, each team, handles its business in conference play. And we've got some coaches who are not shy about going out and playing some contending teams.
It's going to be an exciting year across the American, and we are certainly ready for the season to tip off. It's hard to believe our show is coming to a close here in Philadelphia. It feels like we just got started, but we want to thank you for spending your morning and afternoon with us. Don't forget, you can head over to Twitter at American_Conf to catch Andy Katz closing out the roundtable discussions here at Media Day. On behalf of Monica McNutt and the rest of our American Digital Network crew, I'm Haley Outen. See you later from Philadelphia.